The protagonist says that he will finally open the door to his first world and see all his friends. He thinks that even though he has been there for 100 years, he still remembers their faces clearly. But only 10 years have passed. He now thinks that his world has become a rather peaceful place. He doesn't doubt it for a second. Ed, the strongest warrior who is banished from 100 different worlds, must visit 100 different worlds again, but without 100 different skills. His journey has just begun. The man turns to the main character and says that he may not come tomorrow. The young man is surprised. He asks what is the reason. The protagonist asks if it's a day off or if they have tomorrow. The man yells at him, says it's not that simple. He should never come again. The young man says he doesn't understand his interlocutor because he's had too much to drink. The man apologizes for telling him so suddenly, but they were discussing one issue without him. The man says it concerns the protagonist, and he should understand them. The protagonist asks if they are joking. He refuses to believe it and says that he remembers the promises to kill the demon lord together. No one answers him, and the young man shouts again, asking if they are joking. One of those present answers him in the negative. They are not joking. He asks the protagonist not to think anything bad, because he is a great guy, and they would be happy to accept him into their group. The man says that they were even able to learn something new thanks to the protagonist. He sincerely does not understand why he is being kicked out then. The man bangs his fist on the table and asks what's wrong with the young man lately. He reminds the protagonist that he has started to shirk his duties, doing nothing in training while everyone else is trying to improve their skills. He does absolutely nothing. He says that they thought that the main character was going through this period temporarily and that he would soon become the same, but this did not happen, and their patience simply snapped. The young man looks sadly ahead and says that he understood them. However, the men did not finish. He continues his speech and informs the protagonist that they are expelling him from the group of heroes. The conditions are met, and there are a few minutes left before the transfer. The young man suddenly smiles savagely. He joyfully shouts that he has achieved what he planned. Everyone present does not understand what is wrong with him. Someone suggests that he has gone crazy from such news. The young man replies that he is fine. He says that his wish has finally come true. The young man says that before he forgets, he should ask if they will take this for the last time. The protagonist opens a black hole in front of them. Everyone present is horrified and asks what this is and what is going on here. The young man places books in front of them and says that this is a manual. The girl screams that she's not talking about that. This is a spatial storage. She asks if he really hid such a unique skill from them. The protagonist says that, unfortunately, he had to do it. The girl asks, "What do you mean, had to?" She says that if she has such a great skill, then it can be used in various ways. Ed asks them to read it. This is the information he collected from their battles and training. The protagonist says that he created effective training for them based on it. Since they want to become stronger, they should better follow his notes. One of the girls interrupts him and apologizes. She says that there is magic here that she does not know yet. The protagonist is surprised. He says he wrote it because he knows she will be able to study it in the future. However, the girl is right, and he will tell you the details of the study later. The heroine is surprised and thanks the young man. One of the men points at the map and demands to be explained. He says that it is a map of the dungeon they are going to, and it shows hidden passages that they missed. The protagonist asks if it is really poorly done. Besides, the map is convenient. The man demands that the protagonist explain how he was able to draw a map of places they have never been. The young man replies that it is a secret. Besides, he is no longer in the protagonist group. One of the people present turns to the young man and begs him to forgive them. He says that they didn't know he was doing this all the time. The other heroes also bow respectfully before the young man and ask him to forgive them. They say that everything he has given them is the result of his hard, persistent work. The main character refuses. The man says that he cannot believe that he not only worked harder than him, but also wiped the face of an old man like him. This deserves respect. The heroes turn to the boys and ask what they are doing. He demands that they raise their heads. He didn't mean it that way. He just wanted to give them a present in honor of his departure, that's all. One of the girls present says that with his present, he made them all look like fools who don't understand anything. Suddenly, a guess creeps into her head. She asks if he has some kind of plan for this. The hero turns to the young man and asks him again. He asks if he wants to join them. The protagonist replies that he is refused. Everyone present is surprised. The head of the organization sighs sadly. He says that it is stupid to throw him out now and then take him back. He understands the young man. The young man turns to them and says that he wants to defeat the demon lord. He rushes out of the room. They shout after him to stop and at least say goodbye properly. But the young man is already running out into the street. He runs without stopping until the transfer. There is very little left. The main character counts the seconds until the transfer. He runs into a secluded place and thinks that no one will see him here. A second later, he is transferred to another world. The main character is caught up in a whirlwind of time. The transfer to another world begins. The young man tries to catch his breath. He says that he hasn't been here for a long time. He hasn't been to this place in a year or so. The protagonist curses and realizes that this time was hard, but he did it, so now it's his turn to keep his promise. He sits down in front of the magic ball and demands that it return him home. The young man sits sadly and sighs that no one is around, but he did not expect any other outcome. He lived a quiet and peaceful life until he was called to this place. There was nothing here except one book. Besides the book, there was another door here. The young man looks at it and asks where it leads. He didn't understand what to do now. Naturally, he read this book, but it was terribly boring. It was written in the book that after Togo once enters the door, he will become the hero's companion. They will trust each other for a long time, but only in exile will the conditions be met, and they will return here. The protagonist tries to understand the lines of what was written, but it only brings him melancholy. He lies down on the table and says that he doesn't understand anything at all. Besides, a door that opens once can't be opened twice. He gets up tiredly from his chair and says that he doesn't understand anything again. He finally made a journey to many other worlds. It took him a huge number of years, but he was banished from each world, and he is free. It is unknown to whom, but he asks the question, how is he not understood? He finally finished everything. So why doesn't he at least create a festive atmosphere here? The main character turns his gaze to the magic ball. He looks at it with reproach and hatred. The young man squats down and says that God has nothing to talk about with him. He opens his eyes and thinks that at least here he doesn't age. If he exercises in the other world, he will be able to improve his physical condition. He will eat a lot and gain weight. But as soon as he returns here to the white world, everything will reset to its original values. In other words, he is always a little over 20, even though he has lived for more than 100 years. The protagonist feels like an adult in a child's body. He thinks about what if he comes home like this, and his parents are long dead, but no one will recognize him. The young man feels abandoned and laughs. Suddenly, memories flash before his eyes. He asks himself if he has done everything. What else is needed? He turns to God and asks him to fulfill his promise to send him home. Something is happening with the magic ball behind the main character. Every time I drove him out of the other world, the crystal ball started glowing and gave him one skill. The main character is given the skills of the exiled, as he calls them, the thing of a lonely wanderer who traveled between worlds. Everything that the owner puts inside is preserved even after the transition to another world. This ability is called the Wanderer's Box. An unknown voice tells him to write down the places where they were on a map that only he can see. Then he needs to see the sleeping talent in people, copy and reproduce what he saw once. It was because he had all these skills that he could always easily join the hero's party, but he was banished every time. But since the orb lit up, it meant that he finally wanted to give him the ability to return home. A young man puts his hand to the ball, and lightning occurs. The young man asks himself, is this a joke? He asks you, did they give him a one-time ability? He doesn't understand what to do with it for his entire journey. Here he has never received one-time abilities before. The protagonist understands that it is generally very valuable. So why should he use it now? Suddenly, he sees something and peers into the distance. The young man notices the vibrations, the spaces, and runs to see if a door has appeared. All the doors have always appeared next to the last one, but never in the opposite direction. The young man does not understand. Is this really what he thinks? He looks at the door in front of him and realizes that this is the door that leads to the beginning. In front of him is the door to his world. The young man smiles and rejoices that he finally has a chance to go home. He tells himself that what he dreamed of has finally come true. He will be able to return to where he was taken from 100 years ago. He puts his hand to the door, suddenly freezes. He asks himself if time flows in other worlds, just like in his. The protagonist suddenly wonders how much time has passed in his world during these 100 years. A terrible guess creeps into the young man's head that perhaps no one has survived in his world during this time. He turns to God and says that he has dedicated a whole century to him. Not even that. The young man screams that God has stolen a whole 100 years from him. Without explanation, reason, purpose, or even meaning, he simply continued to do what he was forced to do. The young man turns to him and asks him to come and talk to him at least once. Or does he want the protagonist to use that skill right here and now? The young man becomes furious and shouts that he wants a reward for his work. He asks if God will send him nothing at all. The voice from behind says that God has nothing to talk about with him. The main character goes down and sees a book in front of him. It's the same book I read the first time. He asks if God really wants him to read it. The young man peers at the pages and asks what it is. It says something about some numbers under the door number. The young man realizes that they indicate the amount of time that has passed in his world since he arrived here. He looks closely at the numbers and realizes that he will come to the moment when he was kidnapped and locked up here, and will return home on the same day. The protagonist pulls the door handle and realizes that it won't open. The young man finally loses his temper. He screams angrily and asks what is going on here. Suddenly, the main character sees the key at the bottom of the box where he finds the key, but there is an inscription in memory of the ideal exile. The protagonist thinks that he has never seen such an ugly congratulation in his life. The young man understands that he will be able to open any door in this world that he has already visited once. He will be able to visit it again, and such a transition is not considered an exile. Using the key again on any door in this world, he will be able to return here. Then the key will break and the door he needs will open into his world, the world he so desired. The young man thinks that he needs to see how it all ends. He doesn't like everything that's happening. He asks you, what is this? And if he goes to another world and doesn't come back from there, he will never be able to come back here and go to his world. The young man says he doesn't understand anything, but if the condition for passing was exile again, he would go crazy. The protagonist asks if it's true that he just needs to choose the right world and open the door there. He decides to choose the easiest world, finds the door, and goes back. Now it seems too easy for him. However, the protagonist decides not to think about it and asks himself, where should he go? He passes all the doors he has ever been through and assumes he can enter each one. Suddenly, something catches his eye. He stops in front of the first door to the first world. He remembers that it was hard for him then. He went there without any knowledge, understanding, joining a group of heroes. Under normal circumstances, he would never have been able to join. He only had basic security skills back then. But thanks to the first skill of the exiled, which he was given immediately after he came here because of him, he hit the hero every time. He remembers that God told him that fate itself would bring him together with the hero. And this is the inevitability of chance. But this was another problem. He had no strength or ability to fight alongside the hero. Fearing that he would not be able to fulfill his duties, that he would remain there forever, he would cling to any opportunity to help them, if only they would leave him. He negotiated for a hotel, carried things, got information, and many other small errands. But, frankly, he doesn't know how those three treated him. Something tells him that for a year and a half they treated him exclusively as a comrade. The main character is curious about what happened next. He looks closely at the numbers on the door and realizes that it says 10 years. In 10 years, they definitely defeated the Demon Lord. He thinks it's a nice, peaceful world there now. The protagonist makes up his mind. He thinks that since he can choose any world, why shouldn't he choose the calmest one? Besides, he was forced to go there for the first time. It takes him every time he remembers it. If he were asked if he liked it there, he would answer that, of course, he didn't. He has a lot of painful memories there, but there were some funny parts. The young man sighs and carefully opens the door to this world. Everything here brings back memories for him. The main character enters another world where it all began. He looks around. The young man realizes that he is in the same place he was in the first time. The protagonist realizes that he has completely forgotten about the key. Now that he is here again, he begins to remember everything. Regarding the key, he decides that it would be bad if he lost it. The protagonist thinks that everything that is happening now is great. He looks into the distance and understands that there is still a city there, which means that the demon lord has definitely been defeated, and there should be no strong monsters here. But something still worries him. The protagonist realizes that he feels that something is wrong here. Suddenly, an unknown creature appears behind him. The protagonist turns around and says that he knew it. The young man jumps to the side. A shell hits the place where he was standing. He looks at his opponent carefully and asks himself, why is he so huge? The protagonist does not understand what this huge snake is doing here. The young man decides that it's not a problem, and he will be able to practice on it and use his Wanderer box skills again. The protagonist takes the sword out of the box and says that he can use here the skills of the exiled one that he did not know before. An interesting thought creeps into his head. The boys use one of their skills. He uses a stone body. The protagonist says that his opponent is not so strong since he cannot bite through his body. Something changes in the snake's gaze. The protagonist becomes curious about what the enemy will do next. The snake uses magic. The protagonist is ready to accept the fight. Magic does not work on him. He is immune to magical and physical attacks. The young man says that from the yam magic, his opponent is only soap. He decides it's time to call it a day. The main character jumps high into the air and cuts the snakes into several pieces. He looks closely at the surface of the new enemy and says that it is very interesting. The protagonist asks himself if he should stay here a little longer. It becomes interesting what awaits Ed, who returned to his world. The young man sighs and says that, looking at all these places, he is overcome with nostalgia. Usually he was required to join Hira's squad and work in tandem with him. The main character says that now he doesn't need anything, and he is finally on his own. Besides, the Wanderer's treasure is still full of gold. The young man thinks that now he will even live well. The protagonist suggests that he might even be able to buy himself armor like the heroes for the young man. I wonder if they still sell hero pies here. The young man dreams of trying them. A strange picture forms in his head, but it doesn't stop him at all. The young man laughs. Suddenly, something catches his attention again. He jumps into place and thinks that this simply cannot be. It's as if someone is joking with him. There's something wrong with this world. He rushes forward. The city he was going to is destroyed. The protagonist asks himself, why could this happen? Were the inhabitants really attacked by monsters? But how is this possible? The demon lord should have been killed already. Suddenly, the young man assumes that a war between people has occurred. Once the demon lord is gone, it is obvious that humans will start fighting each other. He does not understand anything, but asks himself, how could everything be destroyed in a few years? The protagonist thinks that everything here is too suspicious. He asks you, what could have happened here? Suddenly, an unknown old man appears in front of him and asks the guy what he forgot here. He says that there is nothing left here. The old man asks the main character if he really got false information that it is safe here. He throws him a bag and tells him to be more careful next time. The young man automatically thanks him. However, he is not here to dig through the rubble. He turns to the old man and asks him to tell him why the city is destroyed. The man asks what he is talking about, since the city has been destroyed for several years already. The protagonist is amazed. The old man says that it is all the army of the demon lord. They have wiped this city off the face of the earth. The protagonist is horrified. He does not believe that all this is the work of the army, the demon lord. He asks the old man if he has gone mad. Shouldn't the demon lord have been destroyed? The man asks why. The demon army has been ravaging their world for a long time now, and there is no end to them. He asks if the young man doesn't even know this. The man wonders where he even came from. The young man asks in horror what it means that the army of the demon lord is devastating this world. He wonders what the hero is doing and where he disappeared to. The old man asks again. The young man says that the hero named Alexis was the prince of this country a few years ago and was one step away from killing the young demons. The old man says that the man died at the hands of demons. The young man laughs and asks if this is true. It seems impossible to him. The protagonist asks himself if such huge monsters from the building could have killed him. The old man says that whatever he thinks, this city is proof of it. If the hero were alive, they would not be in such a sad situation. The young man grabs him, shakes him by the shoulders and asks, "What about his friend? What will happen to them now?" The man asks how he knows. Maybe everyone died. He has never heard of anyone remaining alive. The protagonist believes that the world is cruel and nothing can be done about it. Their offensive has failed. Such is fate. The old man says that they are simple people and can do nothing about it. He says that it doesn't matter whether the hero is a prince or a commoner. Everyone is equal before death. He turns around and leaves, advising the main character to also leave here before it's too late. The young man still doesn't believe what he was told. He asks how this is possible. Why? How? What happened after the young man was banished? Did they really lose the Demon Lord game and are now all dead? The young man remembers all his friends. Is it all because of him, or is there something else? He refuses to believe it, even though he was an extra burden for them. But he tried to act in such a way that he would be of less use from the beginning. He does not believe in their death. Is the end of this world now predetermined for humanity? Destined to perish. The protagonist asks the skill of the exile to appear to him. He uses the Akashic compass and asks it to find him the place where the hero Alexis died. The compass shows him the place, and the young man is convinced that he is indeed dead. He carefully examines the area and realizes that the Demon Lord's castle is located here. He calls the name of his other comrade, and also asks to see where he died. The compass shows the same place, and the protagonist understands that they died fighting bravely together. The young man doesn't know what to do now. He can find them a good place and make a grave. He starts calling the names of all his comrades and asking the compasses where they died. However, the compass says the location is not found. The young man peers at the screen and doesn't understand what it means. The main character asks where she is now. The compass shows the place he needs. The protagonist uses the skill of the exile and the dash of Hermes. He breaks away from the place, heading to where the compass pointed him. The young man flies at the speed of a bullet. He says his girlfriend's name and doesn't stop for a second. Hope settles in the protagonist's heart, and he believes that the girl is alive. He uses the skill of the exile. Ed uses phantom acceleration. He climbs the mountains with incredible speed. The young man outpaces all the monsters. The timer shows the main character that the effect is about to end, and the monster that has been chasing him all this time will reach him. They fly high with their wings spread. The action takes place in the castle of the Demon King. He turns to his brothers and asks to listen to them. Now they will destroy another human city. Their victory is near. The demon says that they need to continue moving forward. They need to kill everyone who gets in their way. His minions growl loudly. He asks what's going on. The main character breaks through the crowd of monsters and shouts that he will kill all these demons. Everyone flies off in different directions. The young man is tearing and throwing. With the help of an unprecedented force, he turns the air into a whirlpool. After a terrible battle, the protagonist tries to catch his breath. He stands and almost falls to his knees. The young man looks at the compass. He sees the place where his girlfriend is being held. Something suddenly pricks his chest. The protagonist gets scared and asks you if he was supposed to bring her a gift or something. He tells himself that he had to take something so that she would praise him. Suddenly, what he needs appears in his hand. It is a worn fruit. If he remembers correctly, she loves sweet fruits, so this would suit her perfectly. The protagonist knocks on the door. The thought is planted in his head that if he is nothing more than another ordinary person for her, that they kicked the hero out of the squad, and then he comes to her house. The protagonist asks himself, will she be glad to see him? He decides that if he doesn't try, he will never know the truth. The young man boldly knocks on the door. However, there was no answer from behind the door. The young man begins to worry. He knocks again and asks if there is anyone here. He worries and asks himself, is there really no one at home? The young man opens the door, asks for forgiveness, and once again clarifies whether there is anyone at home. Suddenly he seems to fall and carefully steps into the house. He tells you that everything is wrong. The door was open from the start. He didn't want to go in without permission. They ask him who was there. The person asking recognizes him as Ed. The main character sees a girl lying on the floor and asks again, who is here? The protagonist asks himself if he is really dreaming. This moment of long-awaited connection with an old group comrade in the very first world. The girl asks if this is true. The protagonist, her golden hair, emerald eyes light up. The young man greets her. Just like all those years ago, she throws herself into his arms and screams his name. The young man asks her to stop so that she doesn't accidentally crush him. The girl is too close to him. He asks her not to cuddle. The girl touches his face and asks if it's really him. She thought she'd never see him again. The protagonist asks her to slow down and asks what he means. Never see him again. She asks him what he's talking about. Once he left the hero's group, no one ever saw him, no matter who you ask, so she thought she'd never meet him. The young man apologizes to the heroine. He says he didn't want her to worry about him being kicked out of the hero group long ago and changing his name and working in another country. In fact, he jumped into the white world a few minutes after being kicked out. The girl says that in any case, she is glad that he is alive. This news is like a weight off her shoulders. She says that she will soon fall, so she better get up. The main character laughs, says that he will soon fall. He sits the girl down. The heroine asks him what he brought. She is happy that he brought her favorite fruits, and so much of them. The young man says that he brought her this as a small present. The heroine says she is flattered, but warns that there is no bath here. The protagonist is surprised and asks why she is here now. The girl says that if he didn't know, these fruits are thrown into hot water, washed with them, and eaten. Then the skin becomes very soft. The young man asks what the problem is with just eating them. He says that they are very tasty, as is. The main character offers the girl to clean them for her and promises that she will like them. The heroine asks if this is true. Suddenly she turns to the young man and asks him to listen to her. She asks him why his clothes are so torn. The protagonist asks her not to talk about it. He just traveled a lot around the world to see one beautiful sweet lady. The girl smiles. The protagonist asks why she laughs. The heroine leaves, saying that she will go and change. The protagonist is surprised at first, then agrees with her. He asks himself why the girl was in her pajamas. The heroine suddenly sticks her head out from behind the curtain and asks if he wants to change clothes with her. The young man refuses. He was never popular among girls, but the heroine is always unashamed, presses herself close to him, brings her face to him, and he can even feel her breath. He looks around and realizes that this is the heroine's house. The young man's attention is drawn to the table. He carefully looks around. The girl appears next to him, apologizes for making him wait. The main character gets scared, says that what he is doing is not what she thought. Suddenly he notices the heroine and is amazed at how beautifully she is dressed. She asks how he likes her outfit. The girl says that she looks a little strange and laughs awkwardly. The protagonist refuses to believe that she dressed up like that because of him. His head is full of thoughts. The main character is at a loss, doesn't know what to say. He only asks questions. The girl extends her hand to him and tells him to undress. The heroine mends his clothes and asks if the fruit is really not sour. The young man says that she can really trust him. The heroine asks if he promises that they are tasty. The heroine asks if he promises that they are tasty. The young man answers affirmatively and hopes that everything is as he says. The girl asks to feed her. The protagonist is indignant and says that he will not do this. She can eat everything herself. The girl says that her hands are busy now, sewing his clothes, and she thought that he would feed her. The protagonist has no choice but to give her a piece to try. The heroine winces and says that the fruit tastes sour, calling the protagonist a liar. The young man says that he could not be mistaken, and decides to try the fruit. He immediately winces and realizes that it really is sour. The girl continues to make fun of him. The main character asks him to stop making fun of her. The heroine says that she is not making fun of him, and asks if she can't play around and feel nostalgic about the old days. The protagonist agrees with her and apologizes. The girl asks, "Did he give up so quickly?" The young man asks, "What else should he do?" He respects her, but she mocks his poor male heart. Although the heroine looks younger, she is an elf, and she is already very old. From her point of view, this truth seems like she's playing with a small child, so he has long since stopped getting angry and somehow reacting to her jokes and antics. Only she never understands this. The protagonist says that the girl has not changed a bit. The young man says that this is what I expected from the members of the heroes group. His girlfriend is sadder. The young man understands what he just said. He waves his arms, says that she is not like that. He does not hold a grudge against her and asks for anything, just not to hit him. The girl simply said something about the old days, and he immediately remembered it. The heroine apologizes and says that she is very sorry. The young man says that it is not true, that he is to blame for everything, and that he should feel sorry for them. The girl says that it is her fault and asks if he did not come to get even with her. The young man asks what she is talking about. The heroine answers that she is talking about. The heroine answers that she is the only one who survived from the hero's group. The main character looks at her attentively, asking her to tell him everything that happened. The girl says that as soon as he left, they tried to find someone to take his place. However, no one approached, and the main character left when they were almost at the border with the Demon Lord's army. The only reason people wanted to join them was for their own achievements, so that they could later brag that they fought in the heroes group. But the warriors did not want to carry the baggage, and they wanted to do anything but fight. In the end, no one stayed with them until the end. The girl says that they hired several people, but they all left them on their own. After them, they did not look for anyone else. Even so, they only lasted for a couple of months. The protagonist asks what this means. He calls himself a fool who made a mistake, but they were professionals too. The girl says that all their helpers were busy carrying luggage, but the main character did more than that. He also helped them with everything. He did the laundry, set up camp, looked after their health, and even cooked. The protagonist understands that if he hadn't been so weak then, he wouldn't have been thrown out. He decides to pretend he didn't hear anything. The girl continues the story and says that they were wrong about the protagonist. His work is really difficult even for Alexis. He realized this when he hired others. Everyone who tried to cooperate with him said that their job was just to carry luggage all the time. If someone needed something, they could hire professionals in this matter. The girl says that hearing Alexis directly told one of the assistants to leave. If he used the main character as a standard, then the young man feels sorry for him. He understands that no one in the group even had a normal rest. The girl says that's true, and only then did they realize that they shouldn't have sent the main character away. She bites her lip and says that after that incident, they weren't going to hire anyone until one person came to them. He asked if they needed a baggage handler. He said he would help and even promised to be a guide. Alexis immediately agreed to his offer. They continued their journey in this composition, and that man with them. Soon they came to the border of the lands in Languedoc of Demons. As soon as they crossed it, they were terrified. And although they were prepared for this, something went wrong. That man escaped with all their equipment, healing potions, and artifacts. He disappeared into the blue light. The protagonist asks her to stop. He says that it was a teleportation crystal. The girl says that they prepared it in case of an emergency retreat. She says that they shouted at the man that he would not use this crystal and would not run away from the battlefield, however. He ran away, and no one knows the reason for this. The man betrayed them. The protagonist says that it turns out he was going to do this from the very beginning. He joined them to lure them into a trap to escape. The girl says she doesn't know that. They had no choice but to fight the enemy, but the demons surrounded them, and they were surrounded from all sides from behind. If the first crystal was destroyed or lost, they hid another crystal in Lex's armored boat, but it was meant for him alone, for he was humanity's last hope. The hero demanded that the man leave. He was a hero, a man chosen by the gods and a prince of their land. Their job was to protect him at all costs. However, the man placed the crystal in her hand and demanded that she leave them and go herself. He said that he was no good as a hero if he left the battlefield. The girl remembered how she dissolved into blue light. A man decided to be a hero until the very end, even though his choice put all of humanity at risk. In tears, the girl admits that Alexis should have survived. She continues to sit silently on the chair, her head down, and there is a pause. The protagonist turns to the girl and asks if she has calmed down. The heroine says yes and asks him for forgiveness. She thanks the young man. The girl says that this is why she was transported to a secret room in the castle. The people around her asked what happened to the prince and why she was here. Only Mr. Alexis could use this route. The girl did not know what to answer, so she just kept silent and cried. The king turns to the heroine and asks what happened to his son. The girl tells him the story. The man in tears told her to go and hide behind the wilderness. They inform everyone that the hero's team was killed on the demon borders. The protagonist asks what this means. He thinks that this is all very bad, but the king had no other choice. He weighed the future of the world and the lives of his comrades and chose the latter. This is very similar to Alexis, but as a hero, he did the wrong thing. But he always thought about his comrades first, so his choice was obvious. The protagonist understands that the king respected his son's last decision. The girl says that because of his requests, she could not participate in the next few campaigns in the demon world. The protagonist asks again. The heroine asks him how far away he lived, if he knows nothing about it. The young man laughs awkwardly. The girl tells that the allied countries sent several times detachments of the land of demons to save Alexis. But even an entire army could not advance far. The hero was gone, and with him, no hope of saving humanity. That is why they lost. Suddenly, the girl remembers and says that if you think about it, her location is a secret. She asks how he found her. The protagonist says that he has an object that allows him to search for people wherever they are. So he became interested in where and what they are doing now. However, even with the help of this item, he did not find his two comrades. Both understand that in this case, it means that the heroes have died. The young man apologizes. The girl thanks him for telling her everything. She says she would like to come to her senses. After all, it is impossible to survive against an entire army, the Lord of Demons. The protagonist calls her. The heroine suddenly becomes joyful and shows him the sewn-up robe. The girl asks the protagonist if he likes the way she sewed it up with flowers. The young man says that he does very much. The girl throws herself into his arms. Suddenly, an incomprehensible vibration appears. Both heroes look around, ask where she is from. The young man rushes to the exit and demands that she stay where she is. Suddenly, the hero stops dead in his tracks. He sees a huge monster in front of him. The protagonist asks what the lower dragon is doing here. He says it's funny if he got lost or went down the mountain on purpose. He asks the girl why the main character went outside. The young man asks what he means. Why does he demand that the heroine go back into the house? The girl tells him not to worry, promises to deal with the dragon. The dragon breathes fire. The young man says that he doesn't care how strong he is, and for him it's easy. The dragon, meanwhile, goes on the attack. The girl uses an instant move and blocks his fire attack with water. The protagonist realizes that she is using the water wall technique. The heroine says that she will not let anyone die anymore. She promises to protect the protagonist. She casts a spell. The spell sounds like the silver blade of the moon, which controls the wind. Must show the moon in green light, the feathers of the six-winged spirits, which sees all the firmament, which strikes all enemies. The girl asks to gather together and strike all her enemies. She calls her name and calls the three-sided stream. Immediately, an unknown force cuts off the dragon's head. The main character does not even have time to understand what happened. He looks at the defeated dragon with admiration and says that it was magnificent with one blow. He praises the heroine, saying that she is an incredible fellow. The girl did everything incredibly filigree. Not only the dragon's scales, but also the brushes cut perfectly evenly. So strong she has become since the last meeting. The girl turns to the main character, asks him to leave. She tries to catch her breath. The heroine cuddles up to him, and the young man asks her what happened. The girl says that he just wanted to leave. She says she wanted to brag to him, but it seems she overdid it. She's fine. The protagonist denies this and says she's clearly not feeling well. The girl replies that she just doesn't know when she last fought. She says that she even dressed up especially for him and asks if the main character likes her. The young man suggests that she go back into the house. The girl says that she is nervous again. The heroine asks the protagonist not to peek and goes to change again. The young man thinks that ours was in the heroes group, and everything should definitely be fine with her. He thinks and asks himself, what does it mean to leave? He decides that first he needs to deal with the dragon, and then he will think. The protagonist asks himself, maybe he should try to put it in his bag. Although no, he doesn't think it will fit in there. Or first kill him to pieces, then try to stuff it. He calls his girlfriend and asks where she is. However, there is no answer. The young man repeats his call louder. He says that he is getting up. The main character finds a girl lying on the second floor. The protagonist rushes to her and asks what happened and why she's lying down. The girl only says his name in a quiet voice. The young man asks what is this growth on her body. He turns the heroine over and discovers that she is covered in growths. Her body starts to turn black from the heart and further down the body to the neck, then goes to the arms. Looks like dead skin. The main character asks what is happening to her. He sees that the girl is left without clothes. The young man wants to dress her. The young man sits next to the heroine and asks if she is feeling better. The girl, lying on the bed, says that she is feeling much better and thanks him for his concern. She asks the protagonist not to think that she was trying to hide something from him. It's just that when she fought with Alexis and the others, she used secret Russian technology so that everyone could survive. This technique allows you to dramatically increase the power of magic by shifting magic with life. The main character asks, "What does this mean?" The reward for such tricks is very high. The girl says that the boards are her life. The main character asks again in horror. He asks her to wait. He says that she was fine just recently, and asks what happened. Why did the attack start so suddenly? The girl awkwardly covers herself with a blanket and remains silent. The protagonist asks if the dragon had really just wasted her life. The heroine sheepishly admits that she did not want the main character to be killed. That is why she overdid it a bit. The young man understands that she thought he would be killed and asks why she thinks so. Suddenly, he remembers that he did not tell her anything at all. The girl says that she doesn't have much life left for such magic, so those clothes are the only thing that somehow helps her stay alive. With it, she can take the magic of the trees around her, and it helps her. If she takes it off and uses magic, then her life will not be enough, and she will die. The main character asks what this means and why she took it off at all. The girl laughs slightly and asks for forgiveness. She says that she was very happy to see the main character and just wanted to repeat those peaceful days that they once had. But it seems that she was wrong again. She took off her clothes and used forbidden magic, so the magical beast must have noticed her then. The protagonist expresses his guess as to why the dragon flew here. Now it's all clear to him. He thinks it's all his fault. The young man bites his lip and blames himself for being so useless. He asks you, is this really the price he pays for his overconfidence in her strength? Why did he decide to run away in the first place? He just wanted to make sure the girl was safe. The cherished don't ask if everything is okay. The young man sits and does not answer anything. The girl strokes his face and asks him not to make such an expression. She says that she may have lived a short life by elven standards, but she lived for others and has no regrets. She has met wonderful friends and seen the main character again, and that is all she needs. The young man rudely interrupts her and demands that she never speak like that again. He did not come here to see his friend die. Suddenly, something catches the young man's attention. The protagonist feels that someone has come again. The girl begs him to leave here. The protagonist refuses. The girl screams at him not to do this. The young man asks her to listen and says that he may look the same as he was, but he is far from the same as before. He decides to tell her the truth about his appearance. His body has not changed a bit since the last time they met, because he was returning again in the timeline. To the very moment when I came to this white world, after he left the group, he worked hard on himself for many years and gained a lot of experience. He managed to travel to hundreds of worlds and met many people and trained with them. He went through a lot, and she can't even imagine how much. So he is no longer the same person he used to be. He became incredibly strong. That's why he came to her to protect her. The protagonist says that now it is his turn to protect her. The girl asks, "What does this mean?" She begs the protagonist to leave here. The young man asks her not to worry and says that he will never leave her again. The protagonist promises this. The girl's limbs are shaking, but even in this position she tries to get up and stop him. She tried to protect the main character. However, what the young man did was only a small part of what he could do for her. The young man was determined to save her from the countless magical beasts. The hero of the others he could not resurrect, but he could bring her back to life. The main character understood this perfectly well. However, the girl did not believe him and said that she would never allow any of her friends to die again. Even the greatest of miracles spreads only to those living now. Peaceful days can no longer be returned. The protagonist uses the creation of the blood sword. He rushes into the attack and cuts all his opponents. The girl watches this picture in horror. She does not believe that the young man is capable of this. The protagonist decides that his ability is very valuable, so he does not want to use it now. However, if he is not mistaken, he has a skill. Throughout his entire journey, he has never received one-time abilities. The protagonist is thinking about using this ability now. He wonders if he can start all over again. The girl says she is disappointed. She never thought a person would do such a thing. The heroine asked for forgiveness, but says that he can no longer travel with them. The hero turns to her and says that he does not understand why it was necessary to come up with such a plan for the sake of getting rid of the young man. The girl says that she knows this, but if she had not done it, now the young man would have followed her anyway, and she can no longer protect him. The heroine is sure that now he hates her for all this. For her sake, she asks to live a good, peaceful life. The protagonist tries to catch his breath and says that he has finished his entire battle. He looks at his friend and asks if she now believes that he can protect her. The girl turns to the main character, asks when he managed to become so strong. The young man answers that it happened after the exile, and he trained a lot. The heroine asks her to listen to her. She asks him to tell her if he can take her to the border of the demon's domain. The protagonist does not answer her anything. The girl Ray asks him 2 times. If he cannot, then it is okay. The protagonist asks her not to worry and says that longer he will do anything. She just needs to trust him. He was not going to even ask what she forgot there. The heroine thanks the protagonist. The young man has already understood her desire. The young man asks if it hurts her. He warns that it may shake a little, but he will try to make the ride as smooth as possible. The girl needs to hold on to him. The heroine says that everything is fine. The young man asks to let him know if something is wrong. The girl agrees. All he is the main character. Then I just wanted to fulfill her wish. The hero rushes to the border of demons. The main character finds the place where his comrades died, and the girl asks to stop her here. She passes by this place, says that it was here that Alexis gave her the teleportation crystal. She did not think that she would be able to return here again, and thanks the young man for the opportunity. The girl runs her hand over the stone and addresses her fallen friends. She says that the protagonist brought her here and asks if his comrades see this. She says that the young man has become much stronger and can make his way through the land of demons alone. She says that she thinks that he is stronger than the hero. The girl turns to the young man and asks if he remembers when they cast him out. The young man agrees with her. The girl says that she is the only one who thought about him all the time. She says she didn't want him to die, but he was always weak compared to them. The young man says he knows it. The girl turns to the protagonist and says that she would never have thought that he would become so strong. She admits that if they had not banished him then, they would have been able to look at the sky together. Right now, like this. She looks with her shining eyes and wants to see a world without demons in this sky. The protagonist turns to her and says that he is thinking about it. Suddenly, the heroine interrupts him and turns to the young man. She thanks the young man for bringing her here. The girl admits that she would really like to fulfill his promises too. The main character asks her not to worry and says that his wish will come true soon. The heroine asks what the main character wishes for and takes him by the hand. The young man admits that he has not been home for a long time. The girl says that she agrees with him. She invites him to go to her house. Her mother will be glad to see him again. The main character is surprised and asks if this is true. First, they will need to buy a couple of souvenirs. For example, a bow for the father, and a dress for the mother. He thinks that she will like the pink one. If he returns home with money, then someone will definitely want to take it away. Then he will have to ask the girl for help. The heroine sadly agrees with him. The young man admits that with his skills as an exile, he can fix everything. He can destroy the demon lord and ask for noble status for it, or even become the ruler of the kingdom. A flower falls from the girl's fingers. The protagonist bites his lip. Tears flow down his cheeks. The main character says that once he believed that life would get better and the world would sparkle with new bright colors for him again. But this did not happen. He asks you, is this really God's plan, and has he been working hard for the last centuries? What was all this for it to end like this? Why did he need all these skills then? The protagonist was happy about that good outcome, but it never happened, so he decides to fix everything. And even if he has to go through his entire path again, he uses the skill of the infinite exile. The protagonist's belief in this is so strong that he launches a light pulse into space. The young man opens his eyes and asks you where he is in front of him. There is a table, a chair, and some room. He asks why the whole room is white. The main character looks ahead and asks if he is really sleeping. Suddenly, he comes to his senses and asks in horror, What is happening? This is not a dream. The young man asks where he is and why he is here. He asks you, was he kidnapped while he was sleeping, or did he die? No, it can't be. The young man decides he needs to calm down and think things through. He was just walking around killing parasites. So far, his story is nothing out of the ordinary. Then he had dinner and went into the forest to set up camp for the night. He thinks that he can't do anything. He sees a door in front of him. The main character asks why she is here all the time. She was in this place. A white book appears in front of him. The main character opens it and says that it means he was taken from his world and transferred here. And if he wants to go back, but he needs to join the hero squad in 100 worlds, train him, and make sure he is banished. These are funny conditions, but now everything is clear. Suddenly, the main character screams that he doesn't want to do this. He asks why he was called here and what did he do? Why he should help the heroes and doesn't want to be messed with anymore. Suddenly, the ball in front of him starts to glow brightly. The book said that by touching it, he would gain special power. The main character looks at the balls and realizes that it glows very brightly. The protagonist says he just wants to go home and decides he accepts the terms of the game. He touches the ball and says he just needs to touch it. He asks you what's going on. There's some kind of impulse running through the main character's body. It's being provoked right into his head by a skill so that he'll definitely meet the hero. At least because of this, there shouldn't be any problems with the hero. At least because of this, there shouldn't be any problems with the hero. Suddenly, the main character's attention is drawn to something else. He asks what it is and doesn't understand anything. A large amount of information pops right into his head. All this is his memory, everything that happened to him. He had already experienced all these memories, saw himself doing tasks and not in one world. He begins to remember. His head is splitting. The protagonist realizes that this is not stopping and begs for it to stop. He asks you not to give up, because that's the only way he can fix everything. All his memories come to him, and he experiences them all in one moment. He remembers the girl's face and falls to the floor in exhaustion. The hero tries to catch his breath and feels that he has a strong desire. He finds it funny that he outsmarted himself with the infinity skill. He went back to the past and didn't think such skills existed, considering all this. Now the skill was able to deceive even God himself. He now has all the memories and skills he collected sometime in the future. With their help, he will need to go through 100 worlds again. But that skill is gone. He may not have a second chance to return, but this will be enough for him. The main character pats you on the shoulder, remembering this friend, and tells you that he will definitely cope. He promises to become even stronger. The young man says that he has already gone through all this once and will not allow such an ending, where all his comrades die, to happen again. He promises to bring peace to the girl's home and everyone will meet a happy ending. But now he needs to start all over again. The protagonist enters the city. A man shouts and asks why they can't accept him, since he is strong enough for Togo to fight. His interlocutor replies and son will serve him well, so you can speak a little quieter. The hero says that he doesn't need a strong man like him about this man right now. His job is just to carry the luggage. The man asks if he understands that. All the people around him pay attention to the hero and are happy to see him. I wonder if that person came to him to join them. They say that he is not the first and can also try his luck. One of the girls volunteers and says that her friend will never be accepted into the group. Besides, if she is thinking about picking on the hero now, she should forget about it. The girl asks why she is revealing her cards in front of everyone. Suddenly, something approaches the hero from behind. The girls realize that he turns around and looks straight at them. Both friends start arguing about who exactly he has turned his attention to. The man is busy with his own business and realizes that something is about to happen. An unknown man approaches him from behind and greets him. He says that he heard that the hero needs a squire. The man asks if he would mind if the squire also fought in the meantime. The hero turns around and asks who he is. The man did not notice when the stranger approached him. He asks who he is and who the man is. You answer that he is an adventurer, that he has been through 100 other worlds and is trying to save his home world. He says that it is clearly not easy for a hero, because this is not the first one today. He has never seen him here before. The main characters realize that they have managed to interest the hero. He says that he is very pleased to meet him. Food says his name, and says that he is a wandering adventurer. On his first playthrough, he clung to the hero, begging him to let him join him. Then the girl helped him a lot. She stood up for Namanu. Now, this seems like a very bad idea, because the squire can't even dictate where the hero goes. The man asks if the protagonist really means to say that he can fight with the luggage. This is a serious statement, in his opinion. The young man says that he can. He says he can defeat the hero even with the thing he holds in his hand. If the man doesn't believe, they can try the other way around. Completely ignoring the events of the first circle is a big risk. So the young man just needs to agree on double work. And to do this, he needs to make Alexis acknowledge him. The heroes jump in different directions, and the man agrees with the young man and offers to start a duel. The man says that if the young man does not drop the object that is in his hand, then he is accepted. Then they decide to begin. The tavern owner is horrified and realizes how much damage his establishment will suffer. The protagonist says that his opponent can start first, and he only needs to say when he is ready. The young man advances. Meanwhile, the hero continues to attack. The young man turns away, saying that the attack was very close. The man admits that his opponent's skills are amazing. He's a pretty funny guy, but he suggests finishing, and he doesn't want the food to get cold. The protagonist says that, in that case, the man will have to give in or have to order new food. The protagonist again meets in battle. It is logical that the easiest way to test it is in personal combat. The hero is strong, and he must prove his strength to the world, because only he can defeat the demon lord, the hope of all mankind. And if he wants to join the hero's party as a squire and adventurer, he must prove his strength, and this way it will be more obvious for all of them. Even if he himself is against it, his allies would definitely accept him. The heroes find themselves on the roof of a tavern, and the young man asks what the man is going to do. He reminds them that the food is getting cold. He doesn't just want to be a squire who carries luggage, but their loyal comrade. The young man asks if it's time for the hero to fight at full strength. The man agrees that he is right. He says that this needs to be ended and rushes at the young man with a sword. The hero's gazes meet, and the protagonist dodges the attack. The man says he is surprised that the young man was able to block his ball. He asks how the young man did it. The protagonist replies that the secret is simple. His opponent is not fighting at full strength. Alexis starts to get annoyed by this and decides to show the young man what he is capable of. And yet he is truly a hero. His skills are insanely strong. But the hero's sword, which he bought on the way here, is almost broken. The protagonist understands that he needs to finish it. Suddenly, a piece of meat falls from his plate. The thought of finishing distracted him. The young man curses and realizes that the food has fallen out. He notices his opponent's posture and realizes that the man is about to strike with his sword. He uses the moonlight technique. If you use invisibility and then dodge, you can counterattack her. But the main character understands that he cannot do this in the form of the hero, must see in him not only about the same nose, but also his comrade. He will have to hit with his skills, which he received while passing to other worlds. He is obliged to reflect the blow. The protagonist understands that he needs to hit in exactly the same way as his opponent. Both characters clash in battle. The man watches the young man and says that everything he does is quite good. The young man lands on the ground, looks at his chopped-off piece of sword, and says that he somehow dealt with the enemy. People surround him and start clapping. They say that the young man is amazing, and it is the first time that anyone present has seen someone fight on equal terms with the hero. The girls tell each other that the hero is cute, but the guy is not bad either. One of the friends teases another, saying that this is the type of guy she likes, and asks if she wants to come up and ask his name. One of the men in the crowd says that the main character introduced himself as Ed. The man says that even a commoner like him can see that a great future awaits him. He is asked who he is. Why does he look like he is rummaging through trash? The protagonist calls out to him. The young man asks the hero what he is even thinking about here. After all, if he had not parried the blow, he would have died. The man cynically apologizes and asks for forgiveness, because he never thinks about such an outcome. The young man chuckles and agrees that these are their heroes. It's one thing when a hero fights at full strength, another when some upstart wants to fight him. The young man turns around and sees the huge man who said those words standing in front of him. He introduces himself and says that they will meet. He is called the martial artist. The man asks not to be offended by Alexis, because even though he fought him seriously, He was watching closely, and if something went wrong, he would immediately protect the young man. The young man says that everything is clear to him. The man asks the protagonist to tell him where he knows him from. The young man says that it is a stupid question because he is the strongest martial artist in the world. The man laughs and says that he is the strongest person in the world. The protagonist laughs and says that he does not envy all his enemies because they see him first. Who flies them like that and asks what they are doing? The hero approaches. The girl says that she left them only for a few minutes. The heroine turns to the ellipsis and tells him to look at what he has done. The young man says that he did nothing. Just a little show the ordinary adventurer the difference in their strength. What does a little mean? The girl asks. Because he used a special technique on him. She turns to the martial artist and asks why he stood and why he did not stop the hero. He laughs and asks why he should do that when he always has everything under control. The young man understands that he is hearing such a dialogue for the first time, but it already gets to him. Nostalgia for those bright days. The girl turns to him and asks if he is safe. He remembers her voice, her face, her name, and everything connected with her. The heroine asks if the young man is wounded. The girl apologizes, says that she is an elf and summons spirits. The heroine says that she is traveling with Alexis. The young man also introduces himself to her and says that he is a squire and adventurer. He realizes that he would like to see her smile again. The heroine sighs and says that she is pleased to meet him. The young man looks at her and tears well up in his eyes. The girl notices this reaction. She asks the protagonist to tell her why he is crying. She is worried, runs around him and asks if she did something wrong. He is a person inspired by nostalgia for those times and understands that it is she. He looks at her and thinks that the girl is alive. The heroine turns to her comrades and asks if they really did something. She approaches Alexis and demands that he confess what he did to the protagonist. The man asks her to stop making false accusations against him. He says that he didn't do anything like that to him, and didn't even really talk to the young man. He thinks it's all about his good looks. The girl asks him to stop talking nonsense. The young man says it's not about Alexis. He wipes away his tears, says that he was simply remembered by the entire group of the hero, and he even felt a bit awkward. He admits that such a chance doesn't come along often. The girl is excited, looks at him, asks, "Is it really true?" She worries that she is guilty before the young man, and asks him for forgiveness. She asks how she should improve. The main character wipes away his tears and asks her to stop. He says that if the girl doesn't mind, she can just call him by his name again. She is surprised and agrees with him. The heroine calls the young man by name and looks at him questioningly. The young man enthusiastically says that he likes it very much. The heroine laughs and says that the main character is very funny. Even though the young man was simply called by his first name, for some reason he really likes it and is incredibly happy about it. He looks at his comrades and is overcome with melancholy. The hero says that she cannot blame him for crying, but something is bothering him. The young man and the girl turn towards him. The man asks to look at the piece of meat that fell on the ground. He cannot accept it because then their luggage will also disappear. The main character turns in his direction and freezes in horror. He sees that the meat was cut. It's all because of the hero's technique. The man says that it was his food. Meanwhile, the girl asks in horror if her friend really doesn't want to take the main character into their team. She turns to him and says that he must understand how strong the young man is. The young man, meanwhile, tells her to look around, because even people don't get angry. The girl points to the people who shout that they saw everything, and the man used a special technique. The heroine says that he really did use it, and the young man survived. The hero coughs and asks why she wants him to join them so badly. They already have enough fighting force. The girl thinks about it. She says she feels they need him. The hero asks if she really doesn't care that much. Everyone in the crowd chants and the heroine says that hers. Comrade is a fool. She turns to another friend and asks him what he has to say about this. The man says that he really doesn't care. The girl doesn't know what else to offer and freezes in fear. She really wants the main character to take part in their expedition. Suddenly, the second comrade says that if the young man really will carry their luggage and even fight despite the severity of his fate, if he simply accepts the job of transporting luggage, then the man will definitely agree to accept it. The protagonist scolds himself. He really wanted the martial arts master to teach him his muscle-building techniques. The master says that the protagonist has been accepted into their team. He promises that he will take care of him. The hero sighs. He says that the protagonist is unlikely to become stronger than him, so he agrees, because he is very good with a sword. The man snaps his fingers. The main character intercepts the gold thrown to him. The hero says that he needs someone who will carry all the luggage, and if the young man copes with this job, then there will never be any complaints about him. The man says he has one more try, and the young man should buy whatever he thinks is necessary and bring it here. If he wants this job so much, he must show the hero everything he is capable of. The young man is confident that everything will go smoothly and squeezes the treasured gold coin between his fingers. He smiles smugly. Give the coin to the young man. Alexis said that he should buy with this money and everything that he considers necessary. Afterwards, he will come and see if Ed is worthy of their group or not. The boy who was aspiring to be a squire candidate bowed and told them to trust him. Gonzo wished him luck. Tia shouted that she would keep her fingers crossed for him. Ed looked at his palm and saw that he had 10 silver coins. Among this pile, he saw a gold one, which surprised him. The young man had already begun to think how he could properly spend 10 silver coins, but the hero gave him much more. The guy realized that Alexis already trusted him more than the first time. If this were true, there would have to be some other factors influencing it. At that moment, an elf approached him. As she looked around, she realized that, although she had seen a lot of the city, she had not known that such a neighborhood as this existed. Ed asked her what she was doing here. The girl noticed that the young man had started to address her in a respectful tone again. She asked why he had started to speak formally to her again. Tia asked him to address her as before. The boy said that he only wanted to show respect to his elders. Walking through the area, he asked the girl why she followed him. The elf thought for a moment and replied that she was simply curious, which is why she followed him. The locals, although still doing their own thing, were keeping a close eye on the young men. Ed asked Tia if she wasn't afraid to follow a guy they were seeing for the first time in their lives. The girl sarcastically noted that she was following the man who had fought the hero himself on equal terms. The elf warned that she was not in Alexis's group for her good looks, and asked if the guy understood her. Seeing the squire's ambiguous reaction, the girl approached him and asked with a smile if he was okay. While Tia looked around, not understanding where they were, Ed was confused. He remembered his girlfriend as sociable, but very shy with strangers. The guy was sure that time had rewound. However, he did not understand such unusual behavior of the elf. He began to have doubts and assumptions that she retained memories of the past. Meanwhile, Gonzo was talking to Alexis. The martial artist asked if it was a good idea to send their friend alone with a complete stranger. The commander replied that he didn't see Ed as a bad person and reminded that it was the girl's own wish. The hero sighed. It turned out the elf wasn't even listening to him. He sighed and muttered that elves were too free-spirited. Gonzo laughed and agreed with him. Alexis hammered wood while talking to her friend. He showed his work and asked Gans if he was doing it right. The man said that his products were undoubtedly good. The owner of the workshop began to worry about his tools and respectfully asked the hero if he could do the repairs himself. Alexis asked him seriously if he wasn't implying that the young man couldn't fix furniture. The man protested. The hero told him not to worry. He was sure he would fix everything and wouldn't break anything else. When Alexis moved away, everyone saw his work. The table looked much better than it had been. It was all shiny, and the legs were decorated with patterns cut into the wood. The hero thought that, for a first time, he had done a good job. While the guy was being modest, the customers and the owner of the establishment did not understand how he could do it. Everyone began to look at the table repaired by the hero and admire it. Alexis turned to Gonzo. He was still curious to watch Ed. Meanwhile, Tia continued to follow the young man through the area. He said that he was still curious as to why she followed him into such a remote area. The girl thought. She said that elves live longer than people. She was already over 100 years old. The elf has lived too long, so many of her memories have already been forgotten. Despite this, they have very dear memories, so they try to enclose them in their souls. If the elves do not want to lose them, then these memories along with the soul will regenerate them, and everything that was put into the soul will remain with them forever. Tia assumed that this was the reason why she followed Ed so easily. She added that when she saw him, her first emotion was nostalgia. The girl had seen the boy's face before. and remembered everything about him. Ed's mind began to flash back to Tia's words, who'd also told him about this in the past, calling it human déjà vu, which felt different to the elves. The guy turned to the girl and asked if she believed in it. She nodded. Tia sheepishly adjusted her hair and said that she clearly saw what had happened to them. The girl hoped that these memories would one day become reality for her too. The guy was pleased to hear this. He spread his arms out to the sides and said that he could hug her first. The girl giggled and asked why he decided to do it so abruptly. Ed said discontentedly that she should decide how she liked him, serious or friendly. The elf laughed and said that she was joking. Ed wondered if it was possible to restore all the memories. He thought that if he were the girl, he definitely wouldn't be able to stop them. The elf asked where they were going. The boy answered that there was a good place around the corner where he wanted to go. The boy understood that restoring memories was an ability only for elves, but if humans had such an ability, then their memories should have awakened as well. While Ed showed them where to go, Tia wondered how he knew these places. The young man with a smug smile reminded that he was a master of his craft and knew how to collect information well. The girl admired him. They came to the place, then in front of them stood a building with a roof on which stood statues of angels. I don't remember this. Ed didn't understand what happened to the roof. Alexis was standing not far from him. He said that during the fight, they broke it and he was curious if he could fix it, so he decided to try. The guy admitted that it was easier than he expected. He said with indifference and confidence that it was all because he was a hero. Looking at his future commander, Ed thought that he had rather strange taste. While everyone was admiring the heroes, the guy asked how they were doing. The elf said that their new squire was simply magnificent. However, Alexis noticed that they had no purchases. Ed looked away and then laid out everything he had. A pile of food, which was packed, immediately appeared in front of Ganho and Alexis. The hero asked what it was. Ed explained that it was food. In front of them was a 10-day supply that could be stored for 3 months. In addition, there were some products that could be stored for even a year. He had heard from Tia that they were leaving right away, so he had taken all the canned goods. Gonzo, however, had another question on his mind. He pointed to Ed's bag and asked where he got it from. The young man took it out and said that he had found it in some ruins. The bag was very roomy, so it could hold quite a lot of things. The hero asked if it was an artifact. Ed slyly replied that he didn't know. He added that only he could use it and that others couldn't. The young man had lied to them. The guy warned her again that the bag would not show its properties in any other hands. Putting her hands in the bag, the elf said that she wanted to get inside, but she couldn't. When the girl meowed, the hero asked her not to act like a cat. Remembering that he had been exiled from the hero's party before, Ed decided to be cautious. He used one of his exile skills, Exile's Treasure. To activate the ability, the young man placed his hand in the bag and used the skill. Ed waited for the hero's reaction with a smile. He was curious about what Alexis would say to this, and curious if his comrade was proud of him. The hero asked how many things the bag could hold. Ed himself was unsure and replied that a couple of bags would definitely fit. Despite his answer, the guy knew inside that the bag's capacity was limitless. The elf put on the bag and said smugly that they could buy enough for the whole year at once. She thought it was great. Alexis didn't understand why she was so proud of him. Taking the bag off the girl's head, Ed presented his new team with the next artifact, which creates water. However, it did not particularly impress his comrades. The hero muttered that it was still better than the neck of a wineskin. He looked at Tia and asked if she hadn't warned the squire about something. Alexis said that their group didn't need water because the elf could create it with her magic. The guy asked why Ed bought this artifact. The girl sat down next to the hero and reproached him for scolding the squire, who, worried about the campaign, bought a drinking bowl for 50 silver coins. She added that although it was expensive, Ed insisted on buying it. Alexis thought about it. He said that it was, on the contrary, too cheap for such an artifact, and added that it should have cost less than 5 gold coins. The girl was surprised by such a price. Alexis asked why Ed had bought an unnecessary waiterer. The squire said that with the artifact, they would never need water. He agreed that they could always ask Tia to create water. Listening to Ed, Gonzo understood his intentions less and less. The young man said that if the elf was hurt or sick, they could forget about water. Now the team could look at the situation from a different perspective. Alexis agreed with him. It was too risky to rely on one person in such an important matter. The young man admitted that he had forgotten that the girl was also a living being. Tia indignantly asked if she was just a tool. Standing up, Alexis said that he understood Ed and their team. Hearing this, the elf asked if he recognized the squire as amazing. The hero did not understand why the girl was so proud of him. Alexis sighed and admitted that Ed was a great guy. He welcomed him into their group of adventurers. The boys happily slapped each other on the high five. Gonzo asked Ed if his bag could hold a good chunk of adamantite, and reminded him of his promise to teach the squire everything he knew. The young man was beginning to regret bribing the martial artist with that offer. At that moment, Alexis noticed that the new member of the team had bought himself a new sword. He came over and picked it up, examining it. The hero honestly admitted that Ed would spend most of his money on the weapon. Alexis returned the sword to its owner and reminded him that the skill of a squire was akin to his. He did not understand why Ed bought the cheapest weapon for himself. The young man replied that he was going to replace it in another city. No one expected it, but he had a cunning plan. Ed had a way with Alexis. She found out about a good place where they could get used to his fighting style and also go to a dungeon. The hero thought it was a good plan. Since Ed was experiencing history for the second time, he was copying events from around the world 6 months in advance, which is why he was so confident in himself. When the boys arrived at the place, the elf was inspired by him. The girl asked if there were blacksmiths there who could make good weapons for them. Alexis did not think so. He explained that there was a silver mine there, from which the blacksmiths took materials. As the heroes walked around the town, Tia saw a man working in a workshop with an anvil and a hammer. She suddenly asked if there was a legendary silver knife that made food 100 times tastier. The girl added that this was exactly what their squire had told her. Ed denied it. The team reached the building behind which the waterfall was located. They stopped there. When Alexis sat down on a chair, he asked the squire to explain his plan to them. Ed immediately warned that the information came from a reliable source that could be trusted and trusted. He learned that there were rockworms in the mine. Everyone in the room was surprised. The rockworms fed on ores and minerals. On Ed's first playthrough, they caused a global crisis by eating all the silver in the city. 3 months after the disaster, the tunnels collapsed. The city was destroyed. This was the reason why the squire called the team to this place. Otherwise, it would be too late. Alexis inhaled. The situation was serious enough. He moved away from her and went to the window. The boy asked why Ed hadn't reported this to the authorities. They would have sent knights right away to prevent a catastrophe. Instead of answering, the young man laughed and called the hero funny. He understood that the government would simply not believe an ordinary adventurer without evidence. So Ed decided to enlist the help of the team. Alexis began to understand his new squire. He asked what treasures he had spoken of earlier. Not believing his assumption, the hero turned to Ed and asked directly if he didn't mean mithril. The young man smiled slyly. The elf didn't understand how mithril and stoneworm could be related, so she asked Gonzo. Unfortunately, the man didn't know the answer either. Hearing this, Alexis could not believe that his strong warrior did not know about mithril. The girl quickly replied that she did, and said that this material greatly strengthened magic, and was also very rare. She added that the best enchanted tools and weapons are made from a material called milfrila. Pleased with herself, Tia boasted that she knew quite a lot about this material. The hero had no choice but to cover his face with his hand and asked the squire to explain it to the girl. He did not mind. He told the elf that she was generally right, but not in everything. The young man explained that mithril was silver that had been exposed to mana for a long time, thereby changing its properties. Tia cried out that she understood. She said that there was a lot of mana in the mine, which affected the mithril, but Ed denied this. Then the girl corrected herself and said that it was the magic of the rockworm that filled the silver. This time, the squire agreed with her. Ed offered to give her a hint. He asked her what the rockworms ate, what kind of ore, and what had a magical effect on silver. The girl answered everything correctly. The monster's food was silver ore, and what affected the silver was the rockworm itself. The comrade continued his explanation. Silver must be heavily infused with mana before it can become mithril, and such a large amount of mana can be found within the worm itself. Thus, Ed led the girl to the fact that mithril is, in fact, undigested feces of a stone monster. At that moment, Tia's world changed. Because in her head the material was bright, beautiful, and shining, and was not associated with this information. Alexis realized that Ed wanted to get himself a rockworm to mine mithril, but he was curious why Tom needed this material. The guy replied that he was calling for the teen to make the best weapon out of mithril. Meanwhile, Tia was coming to her senses. The working day was over, but even so, the miners were not sure if they could leave their workplace. Their boss noticed them. He shouted that the hero and his team were going to mine mithril while they were getting ready to go home. Then the workers realized that Alexis had not told their boss something. They conveyed the hero's warning that no one should enter the mine for the rest of the day. Alexis even paid them for a full day of work. Even the workers themselves didn't know what the boys would be doing there. Walking inside the mine with the team, Gons couldn't believe that monsters like stoneworms could live in such a place, because it was absolutely quiet. Alexis said that if the rumors about the monster were true, then he should rest now. Ed glanced over his shoulder at Tia, if she was still mad at him. The girl began to hit him on the back with her small fists. Because she always thought that mithril was mined, this new information shocked her greatly. The young man apologized to her. He thought that everyone knew where this material came from. The girl asked why they didn't just buy mithril. She thought it would be better than looking for monster feces. Ed said that if the guys had money, they could buy it for a good amount. However, in the mine, they had the opportunity to get it for free and of good quality. Alexis explained to Tia that the rockworms digest everything in their stomach. As a result, there will be no impurities. In other words, the end product of the monster's digestion is pure mithril. The best weapon could be made from this. The elf asked if the hero still needed another weapon. He replied that he did not need it because he already had his holy sword. He asked the squire if they were going in the right direction. Ed used the exile skill Akashic Compass and was confident that they were on the right path. Gonzo thoughtfully noted that his friend's compass was quite useful since it allowed him to determine the location of monsters. It was just a pity that only Ed could use it. The young man awkwardly apologized and explained that he had received it along with the bag. Tia asked Ed what kind of ruins he was finding such useful artifacts from. The guy avoided answering, saying that it was a secret. The team continued down the shaft. Ed stopped abruptly and said that they had arrived. Tia was surprised. There was a dead end in front of them. She asked if the squire wanted to tell them that the worm was on the opposite side. Gonzo took this as a sign that they needed to break through the wall. It was the right time for the man to show off his strength and muscles in all their glory. Ed stopped him and asked him to wait. They didn't need to break anything. The guy himself approached the wall and leaned on it. The elf asked what he was planning. Ed, without answering, swung his leg and hit the wall with force. He used the exile skill Ring Reflection. Gonzo asked the boy what he was doing, because if he continued like this, he would just break his leg. Everyone was tense. The boy assured them that everything was going according to plan. This skill allowed the owner to build up a charge for a strike. Each time, his strike became stronger and stronger. Tia could not watch this and asked Alexis to stop him. The hero told her to just trust and watch. Having accumulated enough charge energy, Ed simply released it directly into the wall, which could not withstand such a powerful blow. The vibration reverberated throughout the shaft. The boys felt the stone walls and floor begin to move and thought it was an earthquake, but it wasn't. Alexis warned that the monster they had been waiting for was about to emerge. Gonzo shouted for his comrades to stand behind him. He was going to stop the stone worm that was attacking them from the wall. The monster's round mouth was already close, but the martial artist was able to stop the monster with his incredible strength. The boys hid right behind its broad back. While the man held the stone worm, he shouted to his comrades to attack him. The boys ran up and each used their weapons along with different skills. The entrance was the spear of the Scarlet Sunset, the hands of the four-fingered spirits. Alexis and Ida from both sides stuck swords into the flesh of the monster. The squire told the hero that his weapon was hindering him. However, he did not care. Meanwhile, Tia summoned a volcanic spear. It appeared behind the girl. The elf ordered it to kill her enemy, the stone worm. After the order, the fire arrow rushed straight into the monster's mouth. It immediately caught fire and burst into flames from within. Sensing danger, the worm began to wriggle. Noticing this, Gonzo warned his comrades that the monster could not turn around and was trying to escape. Not intending to let his prey go, Ed jumped straight into the worm's open round mouth. The young man was going down to his throat. He was determined to get what he was hunting for. Ed was going to cut the stoneworm into pieces from the inside, using the bloody sword. The monster tried to leap from above, but Gonzo held it tightly by the end of its tail. Blood was flowing down the worm's body. The boys were shocked by the actions of the squire, who at that moment was in the monster itself. The elf ran up to the man and asked him to save Ed. He tried his best, but it was hard for him to just hold the monster in place. At that moment, a sword appeared from inside the worm and cut through its flesh. Ed fell out of there. He was covered in blood. As he fell, the guy shouted that there was an unimaginable stench. Gonzo was surprised by such an unexpected appearance of his comrade. Although the squire was all dirty, he was holding in his hands what they came into the mine for. Alexis came over with a smile and agreed that Ed would smell the stench. He reminded him that the boy had jumped into the monster's mouth himself. The squire replied that he knew about the stench, but he didn't think it would stink that bad. Despite the smell, the elf rushed into Ed's arms. She noticed the blood and asked if he was hurt. The young man assured her that he was fine and that she should not worry. However, this did not calm the girl down. She started screaming and asking him why he did it. Ed said that he was not that reckless and would never have done it if he had not been sure of his victory. At that moment, he realized that the girl was worried about him as much as in her past life. The young man apologized. He really felt sorry, because he didn't think Tia would be so worried about someone she barely knew. In his mind, Ed knew that nothing had changed. No matter how many times he lived this life, the girl would never change. The squire added that he just didn't want to burden them with unnecessary work. Ed made a promise to himself that he would become even stronger so that his girlfriend would never worry about him again. He called the others. The squire held purest mithril in his hands. It was as bright and beautiful as Tia had imagined. The girl tried not to think about where it came from. Gonzo noticed that the worm had produced a fairly large piece of the precious material. Alexis said that this would be enough for them. He admitted that it was the first time he had seen such a huge ball of mithril. Tia asked how much such a piece of material would cost. The hero thought for a moment and suggested that it could buy a small castle. His comrades, not expecting such an answer, were amazed. Alexis said that such pure mithril would make a first-class weapon, but if there were impurities in the item, it would be impossible to remake it. This meant that they needed a first-class blacksmith to work with such a material. His comrades were no longer listening to him. They were so amazed by the information that they could buy a whole castle for such a piece, that they began to think about other things that they could buy for mithril. Gonzo was interested in how many items he could buy to train his muscles. Alexis asked Ed if he knew anyone who could work with such material. The squire awkwardly replied that his skills as a blacksmith were enough to make anything out of mithril. When the boys left the mine, they were given a workshop with a furnace and excellent quality tools. Not believing it, Ed asked if he could work with such professional equipment. He was given a positive answer. The boss said that under normal circumstances, they would have charged even a hero, but the team had saved their city, so they had everything they needed. Alexis interrupted and said that he would still pay for everything. Tears of gratitude flowed down the man's cheeks. The hero approached the squire. He found a place for him and was even ready to agree that the young man would do something. But Alexis wanted to warn him of something. He hinted to Ed that if he just spent such a precious material, which they had obtained with great difficulty, then he would be in trouble. The young man smiled confidently and agreed with such a condition. The guys looked at each other and understood each other. The hero told the team that they would leave the squire alone in the workshop. As he left, he noticed that the elf continued to look at Ed with a particularly bloody look. He approached her and asked if she liked Ed. The guy reminded that when their new squire wanted to join their team, only she supported him. Although Alexis knew that Tia was quite soft, he did not understand why she was so worried about Ed. The girl was surprised by this question. It seemed that she had not noticed such behavior in herself. She herself became interested in why she would roll back to the new member of their team. Alexis and Gonzo eventually went to the nearest tavern, leaving Tia and Ed in the workshop. They were quietly drinking beer when the master asked the hero how he could ask such a question of an elf. tank had long noticed that Alexis was the one who was worried about Ed the most. The man noted that for the same reason, his comrade trusted the squire, so they came here. In addition, he entrusted the precious material to Ed. Knowing his distrustful friend, Gonzo came to the conclusion that he was right in his judgment. Looking at his mug, Alexis said that after Ed joined them, he watched him for a long time. The hero noticed that the squire wielded a sword no worse than he did. He had unknown artifacts, as well as a high level of knowledge about various monsters and their weaknesses, which surprised Alexis. So the hero still trusted Ed a little, but at the same time, it made him curious. Gonzo laughed. It was like his friend. He asked why Alexis couldn't tell the squire everything. Meanwhile, Ed was explaining to Tia that blacksmithing wasn't the most interesting thing to watch. The girl giggled. She liked to look not at the case itself, but at the guy. The young man did not understand her motivation, because she saw him every day. The elf agreed with him. She explained that it was her wish to observe his work. She admired that I, comrade, am capable of absolutely everything. The words of her friend made the guy sad. He answered that he was not omnipotent. Looking at his hands, Ed said that he always missed things that were important to him. His thoughts were somewhere far away. It was evident in his eyes. The young man continued to work. He decided for himself that he did not want to make mistakes in this world anymore, because he did not want to lose anyone a second time. So with his skills as an exile, Ed will create the future, change the course of history, and work hard to create a weapon that will change the world. While the heroes followed the squire's plan, a man named Cyan was watching them the entire time. His henchman, I, greeted his master. He wanted to report to him about the hero's battle with the stone worm, but the man already knew about it. He was told that the humans had ultimately won. Cyan said that they would continue to watch them then, as it was his job as an intelligence officer. He ordered his servant to report everything to the demon lords. Ed recalled the events that happened to him and Tia before the second circle. He was running through the forest, carrying a girl on his back. The young man asked his friend what the man who joined them looked like. The elf didn't answer right away. She thought about it. At first glance, he was an ordinary guy. She said a name that dissolved in Ed's consciousness. The girl added that the man had a very noticeable nose. The memory ended. Tia sleepily opened her eyes. She had dreamed of how she and Ed lived happily together. She was sitting on a wooden box while the young man continued to work in the blacksmith shop. Tia was curious about why she had this particular dream and what it meant, since she and Ed had only recently met. Noticing that the girl had woken up, the young man decided that he had woken her up and apologized. The elf also apologized for falling asleep. Ed smiled at her and asked if he could sleep now too. Tia remembered how, at their first meeting, this brave and strong guy burst into tears when he saw her. From that moment on, the girl had the feeling as if they had known each other for a long time. Tia didn't understand why she found pleasure and joy in just being near him. The girl apologized and said that she would like to sleep a little more. The guy nodded. He sighed. Because he worked non-stop in the workshop, the squire felt hot. Ed suddenly remembered his useful artifacts, but he knew he couldn't use them, otherwise he would give himself away. That's why he had to remake his own sword at the blacksmith's. The guy could only use his memory and skills. The young man took out the compass that tracked the monsters and looked at it closely. He knew and felt that there was someone nearby, and with them. Cyan continued to watch Ed through the workshop window, hiding in a tree. He looked at the guy from above and asked his servant if this was the one who ruined all their plans. The eye assured him that this was the same person. According to the intelligence officer, Ed was a simple porter, but the demon did not understand why he was doing blacksmithing. It was strange for a man. Meanwhile, the eye kept saying that it needed to be killed. Cyan looked at it and needed to be killed. Cyan looked at it and said that they could not do it yet. The servant asked why they were not allowed to act. The man reminded him that in a human body, he was limited in strength. If they had to fight, people would certainly find out who he was. The servant thought that it was the master who was not going according to plan. This angered Cyan. He angrily asked the eye if he should be punished so that he would remember who he was talking to. The demon's body began to change. Soon he turned into a shadow lizard. Grabbing the servant with his long tail, Cyan said that they would wait and gather information, and only act when they knew more. As the demon began to crawl along the rocks, The servant wished him luck. When a week had passed, Ed showed his work. It was so incredible that Gonzo could not believe that an ordinary squire could do it in 6 days. The guy was proud of himself. He said that he spent almost all his time doing blacksmithing, taking time only for sleep and food. Alexis asked seriously if the young man was sure that they had not wasted the material. Ed was 100% confident in his abilities. Gonzo was already impatient to see the best weapon created for Milforil. The young man asked him to wait, because he also had something to tell about the weapon. As soon as Ed started to tell, Tia interrupted. He had a round object attached to his hand. The girl asked what it was, and if it could show the location of monsters. The guy whined to be allowed to prove it himself. While the young man was talking about the compass, Cyan was standing not far from them on the roof of the building. He realized that he had spent all 6 days with the mithril on an ordinary sword, gloves, and a silver staff. This surprised the demon quite a bit, because he had expected something more. However, he was still curious about what the strange squire had done. The servant lined up behind him. The demon considered that, with the exception of the hero's sacred ball, this weapon should not pose a threat to them, but for some reason he was still afraid. Cyan's mind to kill the hero's team now. As soon as he thought about it, Ed turned and looked straight into the demon's eyes. The man had to quickly hide behind the wall. He could not believe that a man could see him from such a great distance. The demon ordered the servant to wait for him at this place. He obeyed. With the help of the metamorphosis skill, Cyan transformed into a huge, dark bat. He was going to report everything to the demon lord. Ed seemed like a very suspicious person in Alexis's team. Cyan was bothered by the fact that a mere squire had noticed him when even a hero couldn't. The demon flew quickly over the city, rushing towards his master. Cyan didn't understand what was wrong with Ed, who was looking at him like he was prey. The thought was beating in his head that it should be the other way around. A demon couldn't be prey for a human. He couldn't believe it. When Cyan was about to fly over the main gate of the city, 2 huge pieces of ice hit both of his wings. The demon immediately fell to the ground. He was shot by ice magic. Cyan thought it was impossible to do at such a great distance because he was flying high. Ed appeared in front of him. He greeted the general and said that he had wanted to meet him for a long time, but he did not expect that their meeting would happen so soon. Because the young man addressed Cyan by name, he realized that the squire knew him from somewhere. Ed feigned innocence. He apologized for choosing his demonic name. The young man added that there was no point in remaining silent. Cyan himself knew this much better than the squire. The demon wanted to say something, but at that moment Gonzo with Tia on his shoulder ran to Ed. The girl asked how he felt. The young man was glad that his comrades had arrived on time. He found fault with the fact that he had been injured by the elf's accuracy, who had hit the monster from such a distance. At that moment, Cyan realized that the hero's team had been watching him all this time. The master approached the demon and thoughtfully asked if it was he who was watching them. Ed confirmed it. Tia leaned towards the enemy and asked what they were going to do with him now. Sensing that he was in a dangerous situation, Cyan returned to his human form. He noticed that the hero was not with them. The man slowly raised his hands and said that he was not their enemy. He was only an ambassador of the Demon Lord. He's only an ambassador of the Demon Lord. He just needed to talk to Alexis. Tia immediately stated that he was denied this. Ed told the demon that the hero would not come here, since they asked him to do something else, and right now he was evacuating the residence. The squire was quite surprised by the offer of a truce. He said that, coming from the lips of a demon, it even sounded funny. Ed said seriously that they would have no peace in the present or in the future. Cyan laughed. He began to act impudently. The demon called the squire a man who greatly exaggerated his powers. At the same time, he was not even a hero. Cyan's body began to gurgle. It grew and changed quickly. Soon, it was no longer a man standing before them, but a metamorphosis of the tyrant of death. The demon called the boys fools. Now he would show them true power. Taking shelter from the strong wind that rose from Cyan, Tia asked if the huge monster that looked somewhat like a bug was its true form. Ed muttered that it was an expensive idea to send a hero to evacuate the villagers. Gonzo shouted that their enemy was very strong. As Cyan was about to strike his arthropod limb at the hero's command, Gonzo activated an aura shield that covered all of his comrades. The collision of these forces caused an explosion. Cyan hissed. He promised that he would never forgive them for forcing him to use the form he hated. The demon hated her because she was so cruel, but now he cannot be stopped. He was going to turn everything into dust. A ball of powerful energy began to form from his mouth. Lightning continued to strike the ground, but the heroes remained in their places. Gonzo covered his shield. Noticing that the martial artist was going to use a mithril glove, Ed became worried and asked if the man was confident in his abilities. Gonzo replied that everything would be fine and activated the aura shield, which was now able to surround the entire city with the new weapon, protecting it from the demon's attacks. Cyan was surprised by the protective spell that could cover the entire city. He had not found it during his reconnaissance. When the lightning stopped striking the city, Tia reminded Gonzo not to forget about her and Ed. They were there to help and support. When Alexis finished helping the residents evacuate, he watched from above as his team fought the demon. The hero was amazed at how powerful the weapons created by Ed were. Gonzo's gloves could collect mana, which could destroy the entire world. Remembering Ed's explanation, the martial artist intended to take his advice. The man gathered all his magic into his fist and punched the demon that was attacking him. He was going to kill them all. But when the smoke cleared after the blow, he saw that his hand was gone. Gonzo turned to Ed with blazing eyes and said that the gloves were the best weapon he had. Cyan assured himself that it was because of the weapon that the hero's team had become so strong. Now that he had felt real power, the martial artist wanted more. The man wanted to fight the demon for real. The enemy, however, did not feel the entire sacred ball. He did not understand where such power was coming from, or why this had happened to his limb. Cyan glanced at Ed and realized that this squire was to blame for everything. Trembling all over, he tried to get up to report everything to the Lord as soon as possible. A huge lightning bolt from the demon struck him. Taking cover from the wind, Gonzo asked if their enemy had decided to kill himself. Ed grimly replied that the demon only wanted to escape this way. They saw a hole in the ground. The guy explained that the demon had changed its appearance and was now trying to leave. Cyan used the metamorphosis skill and turned into a stone worm. He decided that if he went underground, the heroes wouldn't be able to catch him. However, at that very moment, he was caught by Tia's stone bonds. The girl apologized to the enemy, saying that her friend Ed had a pretty keen eye. It was hard to deceive him. In her hand, she held a new sword made of mithril. When Ed handed it to the elf, he said that he had put the power of spirit magic into it. Thus, the girl was able to use it as she wished. She could even cast spells with it. A joyful Gonzo approached Tia and was amazed that she could do this too. However, the girl herself was not completely sure of it. The elf said that magic should not have worked like that. But because of this ball, the unreal became real. Sane, who was trapped in stone bonds. The demon couldn't move, and the stones were pressing hard on his organs, causing blood to flow down his stoneworm's mouth. The young man first asked the demon what he was going to do next. Then he added that the enemy might not respond, since he already knew and remembered. Ed asked if he had any regrets. He assured him that even if he died, he would still be reborn and take revenge on the general once again. Cyan did not understand what the man was talking about. Ed replied that he didn't need to know. The boy just wanted revenge. The demon had had enough. He growled and asked who this man was and where he even came from. Ed answered honestly that he came from the future. Without saying another word, the young man swept his silver-winged sword and cut the monster into small pieces. After Sam breathed his last, Ed's sword hid the vault of peculiarity and became completely normal. The youth raised his head to the sky in relief. The demon did not move anymore. It was all over. Tia and Gonzo were rushing towards Ed. They were asking if their comrade was safe and sound. Alexis was following them. The squire informed them that he had killed the demon. He smiled smugly and asked what they thought of his swordsmanship and his new sword. Tia came closer to the slain enemy and noticed that the demon was safe and sound. Alexis also approached the body of Cyan, which remained in the form of a stone doctor, and advised the girl to take a closer look. The hero noticed that Ed was cutting the enemy as if the driver had clicked on butter. He ran his hands along very even and smooth lines, and assumed that the demon had died without even understanding anything. It was an amazing sight. Alexis pointed out that such a technique required masterful ball control and an equally incomparable blade. Ed changed the subject. He scratched his head awkwardly and said that he had a lot to learn. The young man added that, overall, he had made the sword in a hurry. Alexis reminded the squire that he was a hero, and that title was far from an adornment. He could swear that there was not a single craftsman among humans capable of making a weapon with such characteristics in such a short time. The guy reminded him that Ed worked alone, not letting anyone near him. Alexis approached his teammate and asked him point-blank who he was and what he was hiding from his team. That was a question Ed wanted to avoid on the second lap. The hero Alexis was the prince of a great country, chosen by the Holy Sword as the only person capable of defeating the Demon Lord. He was the hope of humanity. His arrogance, befitting his status, sometimes bordered on arrogance and coldness. In his first circle, Ed did not take off much, but now with his memories, Alexis's disdainful looks were very different from his. In fact, the squire hated the prince. Ed was taken aback by the question. "I don't understand." He asked what exactly he should reveal from them, although he mentally understood that he was exposed. However, the Pereno was not going to stop his game. Ed asked the hero why he decided that at all. Alexis then pointed at his sword. He said that Ed's weapon was clearly made of more than just mithril. The boy didn't understand how the sword changed its shape and turned into a super sharp blade. Ed explained to him that he himself transforms part of the mithril into wings. Thus, the blade becomes thinner and sharper, but the maximum he can make is 12 wings. The more of them, the easier it is to break the weapon. However, Ed did not say that this is not magic, but his unique ability, and the exile, skilled craftsman. The squire said that he expected nothing less from the hero's attentiveness. Alexis was able to see through him right away. Tia didn't understand anything. Gonzo listened attentively. Alexis decided to rephrase his question. He asked Ed what heights he aspired to as a blacksmith. The squire sighed with relief. It turned out that this was all the hero cared about. After some thought, Ed replied that he wanted to forge swords that could cut through anything. Alexis said that was a fairly typical goal for a craftsman like him. At Ed carefully and reminded him that he had already forged such a sword. Tia stood up for her friend and asked why Alexis thought so. The hero added that he would understand if it was just a prototype or something else, but Ed said it was a temporary solution, which meant that under better conditions, their squire could create a better sword. Alexis asked Ed why he called such a sword a temporary solution and why he was unable to create something better. The hero was interested in what exactly he lacked, materials or equipment. Ed understood that in the current conditions such a sword was simply impossible to create. He replied that the main problem was the materials, namely their unavailability. The young man explained that they could not be simply bought, but he knew that he had long ago obtained everything he needed in other worlds. The hero looked at him intently. He decided not to continue the conversation and said that they needed to repair the destroyed wall. The hero suggested cleaning the area first. Hearing about the repair, Tia immediately remembered the work of art Alexis had created on the roof of the tavern. She stopped the hero and said that she and Gonzo would fix the wall and asked if he agreed. The guy asked why he should be against it at all. Together with the martial arts master, the elf hurried to start work. Ed was amused by the situation. They told the hero that they would go and help the guys, but Alexis stopped him. The hero had another task for the squire. He told him to come to his room alone. Alexis wanted to talk to him. Ed immediately broke out in a sweat from worry. Meanwhile, Tia was using her magic to restore the city wall. She called upon the hand of the earth to help her in this task. Tia moved large boulders with her powers. She stretched out her arms, as if holding something down. Behind her, large hands imitated her movement and carried the stones. The townspeople recognized her as the elf from the hero's team. She bowed and asked for forgiveness for the hole they had made in their wall, and promised that they would fix it. However, the townspeople were not particularly worried about it, and the elf told her that everything was fine. People surrounded her and admired her power. They knew that the heroes would save their city from the demon, so they thanked them. Someone even admitted that they envied her spirit magic. The girl said sheepishly that they were working for the benefit of the people. Hearing this, the people asked her with anticipation if they would quickly finish off the demon lord. The residents were counting on them very much. Tia had no choice but to agree and promise that they would definitely bring peace to this world. She raised her fist and said that the Lord was just a weakling compared to their strength and teamwork. Everyone began to support her. A large shadow covered them. It was Gonzo, who was holding a large stone boulder above himself. He said that no one could resist his muscles. Everyone was amazed at how huge the stone the man could lift. The master promised that the same would happen to the demon lord. Gonzo put the stone down and walked over to Tia with a satisfied smile. He heard the townspeople praising the incredible muscles of the martial artist from the hero's team. The man patted the girl on the head, telling her that everything would be okay. He reminded her that the more they fought, the higher the expectations were for them. It was their duty as Alexis's partners. Gonzo added that with him, she did not need to pretend to be strong. He noticed her worries and decided to support her in this way. The girl thanked him. The man added that together with Ed, they had become stronger. Together with him, they would definitely defeat the demon lord. Tia was truly grateful to her comrade for his encouraging words. Gonzo smiled widely. At that moment, he remembered Alexis and asked where he was going with the squire. However, the girl also did not know where their friends had gone. As soon as Ed came to the hero's room, he was offered tea. He agreed. Alexis warned that he didn't really know how to brew a hot drink, so the taste wouldn't be so delicious. However, the squire was more frightened by the hero's calmness. He was uneasy about being alone with Alexis. Ed was becoming paranoid about being found out. The hero was silent. When the silence was already pressing on Ed's ears, he pushed the prince to talk. The squire began to assume that they wanted to expel him from the team. Alexis took out the holy sword and said that he wanted Ed to look at it. The guy said that he could take the weapon out of its sheath. Ed carefully pulled out the sword he had seen in battle many times. His face showed admiration. It was the first time he held it in his hand, because in the previous world, Alexis always got very angry if someone touched his sword. Suddenly, Ed stopped short, and the hero noticed. He asked if his talented squire had guessed. Ed carefully said that his sword was indeed of excellent quality. Alexis asked why he thought so. There was no immediate answer. The holy sword was undoubtedly a masterpiece, made of different metals. It was definitely impossible to forge something like that without the proper skill. But there was something strange about this weapon. The hero sighed. He knew Ed would understand right away. The boy said his sword was fake. It was certainly beautiful, sharp, and strong, but it was still a fake. Ed thought about it. If he used his skills as a skilled craftsman, he could create an identical sword. But he was still curious about what happened to the real holy sword. He asked Alexis where the original had disappeared to. However, the hero did not know. His squads had searched the world, but so far their search had yielded nothing. Ed asked if this was done on purpose, so that Alexis would be considered a hero with a real holy sword. The young man replied that he would always be a hero, but if the Lord admitted that the holy sword was fake, he would start looking for it himself. If this monster found it before people, then humanity would have no chance. Alexis understood that he had been deceiving everyone around him for a long time. His people, his friends, and his team. His sword was already in critical condition. No one else in the world could forge a weapon better. Until the moment when the hero met Ed. Alexis looked his comrade straight in the eyes and asked if he could create a sword better than this. Ed thought about it. With his knowledge and experience from his past life, as well as his skills as an exile, he could forge something better than what the hero had. However, even so, it would still be a replica of the real holy sword. In order not to disappoint Alexis, Ed said that he was pleased to hear that the prince believed in his squire. The hero, as if sensing that the young man was going to refuse him, bowed and asked Ed for help. He promised that the squire would have any materials and equipment. Alexis would provide him with everything, if only the boy would create another sword. Alexis asked him not as a hero, but as a prince. Ed was taken aback by this. He asked him not to bow before him. The young man replied that he was ready to bow his head if necessary. Alexis understood that he, as a hero, carried the future of all people on his shoulders. His failure is the defeat of all humanity, so he must always bring hope and win. Ed didn't understand how he could carry such a burden on himself. He said that Alexis was simply thrust into this role. The boy was a victim who was loaded down without asking and forced to fight. Ed asked why the hero continued to do this if he understood everything himself. Alexis said that he was special. He could have everything he wanted. Throughout his life, the young man had all his most absurd wishes fulfilled, so he believed that he had to make everyone's dream of peace and a bright future come true. That is why Alexis asked Ed to do it with his own hands, so that he would continue to be a hero in the eyes of his people and kingdom. Now the squire understood and saw the real soul of his comrade, which was filled with different thoughts and experiences. Alexis always thought that he was special, so he looked down on others. A hero does not need much effort to make his dreams and wishes come true. It is not boring to be chosen, because the young man was like that from birth. Ed said that his sword would simply not be worthy of a hero, so he set a new goal for his compass, a true, holy sword. Alexis was surprised. He didn't understand how a demon-finding artifact could help them find the weapon. Ed admitted that he had been hiding a lot from them. The guy understood that if his identity and history were revealed, it would be difficult for the guys to expel him from the group. After such determination, Ed would not be a man if he did not agree to help his friend. Alexis asked if the squire was a hero too. Ed translated the topic of finding the sacred sword. He said that he would give a discount for his commander. The boy said that the price of his service would be the death of the demon lord and peace for humanity. Alexis grinned. The boy never ceased to amaze him. The hero agreed. Alexis was willing to pay that price if Ed would help lead him to the true holy sword. The squire bowed and said he would do whatever the hero wanted. The prince stopped him and asked him to call him by his name. Alexis was not going to treat someone he had to bow his name. Alexis was not going to treat someone he had to bow his head to that way. The hero added that Ed was his true comrade, like Gonzo and Tia. The young man was very surprised. The squire promised that he would make Alexis a true hero. The friends shook hands. They looked into each other's eyes and smiled. Finally, Ed became a real comrade of the hero. The villagers were amazed by Tia's work, who repaired the gate in one day. Not only did it look amazing, but thanks to her spiritual magic power, it was much stronger than before. Seeing that the team was about to leave, the townspeople asked the girl to stay a little longer in their city. The elf thanked them and apologized. She said that her next destination had already been decided, so she had to leave. Then the people asked her to look at their expressions of gratitude. It was a large statue of the girl herself. Her hands were folded as if in prayer. She was asked what she thought of their gift, which the villagers had put all their efforts into. Tia was not particularly impressed. Gonzo and Ed could barely contain their laughter. One of the townspeople approached the thoughtful Alexis and said that he wanted those who did not see the girl's exploits firsthand to feel it too. The elf asked why only her statue was made, since her comrades were there too. The hero asked the guy if he made this statue. Alexis thought it was missing something. He asked about lighting it from below with colored lights. The worker liked the idea. The girl yelled at them to stop. She didn't ask for any of this. Alexis called Ed, and without further ado said that he was counting on him. The squire understood his comrade. With a new goal to obtain the real holy sword, they immediately set to work. Ed's compass only showed the final destination, but not the path. So their adventures will not be easy. All they could do was follow their destination. The boys visited beautiful fields, high mountains, dense forests, and even swamps. Sometimes they went underground trying to find something interesting. Ed himself saw many beautiful landscapes, experienced many emotions, which was not the first passage. After 3 months of wandering, he and his companions arrived in a secluded northern country, deep in a foggy forest. Walking through the forest, the guys began to worry that they had lost their way and kept asking Ed, who was leading them by his compass. He was sure. They asked Tia if she knew why the fog did not dissipate even with the magic of the spirits. The girl replied that a rather strong spell had been cast on the entire forest. Carelessly attempting to dispel it could activate another spell, and the flow of mana as a whole was somewhat strange. Tia said that if this is where what they're looking for is, then Alexis's presence could be affecting the environment like that. The guy didn't hide it from his girlfriend and said with a smile that she had figured him out. They had arrived exactly where they needed to. Gonzo said that despite this, they shouldn't let their guard down, and recalled an awkward incident that happened to Tia last month. The girl asked how the hero could know that something like that would happen there. Realizing that her comrades would now discuss that incident, the elf asked Ed for help. The young man muttered that this time, they really were in the right place. Looking back, the team was met with a stunning view of huge statues of warriors holding balls in their hands. They stood in a circle with a sword stuck in the center. Ed looked at Alexis, who read the prophecy, that deep in the forest of concealment, there was a source of purity where the power of a hero lay dormant. Alexis understood that only a true hero of the world could come to this place. Gonzo and Tia watched their friend carefully. They looked at each other and smiled, understanding everything. The boys hugged Alexis, telling him to finally do it. A touching meeting awaited him, and his friends pushed him towards it. Ed smiled as he watched them. The hero thanked them. He turned and thanked the squire. Without him, Alexis would never have come here. Ed said that was their deal, and added that he should not stay too long. Remembering their deal, the hero suggested that the squire try to pull out the sword himself. The young man was surprised. The elf's eyes lit up. She said that it sounded quite interesting. Alexis said that only a true hero can get the holy sword. If the boys learn, then they will be true heroes. He wanted each of them to try to do it. Ed immediately rolled up his sleeves and said he would try it. He would never get another opportunity like this. Next up was Gonzo, and after him was Tia. Ed grabbed the holy sword by the hilt and pulled it, but the weapon didn't move. He knew he could easily pull it out by simply moving it to his treasury, but that wouldn't be fair. After Ed's failed attempt, martial artist Gonzo went next to try his luck. While Tia pitied the sad Ed, the man tried his best to get the holy sword. But even his huge muscles couldn't help him. Now Ed was comforting Gonzo when Tia lunged for the sword. As expected, the girl didn't succeed either. Alexis wasn't surprised, though. It was his turn. Finally, like a hero, he reached the holy sword. Approaching it, Alexis carefully touched its hilt. Seeing that the hero was in no particular hurry, Ed asked if something was wrong. Gonzo assumed that his friend was very worried. Tia muttered that he would be fine. Alexis confidently grabbed the sword. He was determined to get it. His friend shouted words of encouragement to him, but this irritated him even more. The hero noticed that at such a historical moment, his comrades were too noisy. Taking the sword in his hands, Alexis wondered if he was the real hero. When the weapon moved, the young man's consciousness moved to the king's room. He immediately recognized the room from his castle. Suddenly, the young man heard a familiar female voice calling him by name and giggling. The woman liked that name. Alexis turned around abruptly and saw herself on the bed as a newborn baby in his mother's arms. She was sure that one day, everyone in the world would know her son, because he was special to her. Meanwhile, the team saw their friend frozen near the sword. Ed asked the hero if something was wrong. The comrades began to gurgle, because they all noticed that Alexis was not moving. Then the squire decided to check him. As soon as he wanted to approach the hero, a huge stone hand of the statue blocked his path, almost slapping him. The guy managed to jump back from the blow. Gonzo and Tia immediately took a defensive stance. Gonzo immediately asked how Ed was feeling and if there were any traps, but the young man did not know. He shouted for Alexis to wake up. Tia said that he would not succeed, because the hero was under the influence of strong magic. His consciousness was going somewhere. The warrior statues that had stood quietly in their places a minute ago now stood up and surrounded the team. They directly told them not to let their friends interfere with the hero's judgment. Meanwhile, little Alexis asked his mother to read the story again. The woman giggled and noted that her son really liked the story about the hero. She was lying on the bed, covered with a blanket. The boy agreed with her. He was fascinated by the story of the hero who defeated the demon lord and saved the world. She stroked his head and asked if he wanted to become as brave and courageous as the character in the story in the future. The boy screamed that he wanted to be a hero. The woman was sure that her son would become one, and she made a promise that she would wait for that day. However, death caught up with her earlier. From that day on, Alexis trained constantly to become a true hero. He never rested. The boy became special, even among his own. Watching his son's endless training, the king began to worry about him. However, one meeting changed everything. After it, Alexis realized that he was not so special. He was still an ordinary boy. He encountered one of the masters. The team fought stone statues. Gonzo, with his incredible strength, was able to parry a warrior's blow. He didn't think the statue could withstand his fist. Tia climbed onto the enemy's arm and suggested that if physical attacks weren't working, she could try using magic. She asked Ed to help her and Gonzo to cover Alexis. The girls shouted for the statues to stop interfering with them and struck the enemy in the stomach area, while Ed attacked the warrior's legs. Gonzo tried to shout to Alexis, asking how much longer he was going to sleep. The comrade's consciousness continued to wander through his memories. Even though he understood his weakness, he did not give up his desire to become a hero. Whether it was delusion, nostalgia, or the stubbornness of a child chasing his mother, he still moved forward. In his memory, there was a day when people could put an end to the tyranny of the demon lord. Alexis was dedicated as a hero. The news spread through the city that Alexis was the new savior of the world. He knelt and thanked his majesty. Then the little boy who had once promised his mother to become a hero had finally become one, felt empty. He didn't understand if this was what he really wanted. When the young man first met Tia, he was struck by magic. He said that he wished he had such power with him and asked if she would like to join him. Although the girl was a little taken aback, she agreed. After the proposal, the elf formally introduced herself to the hero. She was pleased to meet him, so Alexis gathered his comrades, hoping that they would also become stronger, but they still could not keep up with his strength. Suddenly, a scene from a memory that the current Alexis didn't remember began to play out behind him. The hero asked Tia if they had no other way out of this situation. The girl was sure. She said that even though Ed was sure of them, they could no longer protect him. The girl understood that the squire could hate her later, but she wanted him to stay alive and well. Alexis decided that this was a worthy and reasonable decision. After all, if Ed followed them, he would certainly die in the demon lord's domain. Alexis's consciousness screamed. It did not understand why he was being shown an illusion, because it had not been in his life for a long time. After the young man suggested that this could be a possible future, however, the feeling that he had forgotten these memories did not leave him, as if he had lost a lot. Another scene appeared before him. Tia and Gancho were fighting the monster. Alexis was exhausted in this fight. He felt that none of the promises he had made as heroes had been fulfilled. In the end, he had nothing left. The young man did not know if he was truly worthy of being a hero. His consciousness returned to his body, and he noticed that his hands were still holding the holy sword. Alexis didn't understand why he couldn't get it out. It dawned on him that maybe he wasn't so special after all. Then he reminded himself that he was risking everything to save the world. If he refused, he would be a fool who ran away from his problems and would die with his pride and no future. The stone warrior swung his sword and attacked Gonzo, but the martial artist deftly caught him and held him. Meanwhile, Ed took advantage of the situation and cut the stone statue in half. It fell to the ground, raising dust. Alexis continued to struggle with his doubts. He understood that the end would come for humanity and for himself as a hero, so he would go to the end, would come for humanity and for himself as a hero, so he would go to the end. Alexis knew he had never lived the life of an ordinary man. He had always lived knowing he would become a hero. In front of him stood a huge statue of a warrior. Its eyes glowed with a bright color. It raised its huge sword right in front of the boy. Alexis just accepted it and played along. He was always treated specially. He admitted that he had never been a real hero. Ed saw his frozen comrade about to be attacked. He shouted in anger and asked what Alexis was talking about. The hero asked who decided that those who try their best are inferior to the chosen ones. He acknowledged that Ed had done a lot for him, and now it was Alexis's turn to step forward. He pulled the holy sword out of the ground. Everything glowed with light. Alexis knew and believed that he was a real and true hero. The boy swung his sword. A bright dome surrounded the stone hall where the warrior's stops lay. The dark night in the forest was illuminated. Having struck the stone warrior, an explosion occurred. Stones flew everywhere. When the wind calmed down, the boys saw Alexis in front of them with a new weapon in his hands. The sword was beautiful, like the glow of the moon. Feeling the power of the holy sword, Alexis told the team that with his strength and the help of his comrades, they could reach the Dragon Lord himself. Then together they could defeat him. Alexis's eyes changed. A moon was visible in them. Finally, the little boy became a real hero. The team supported their comrade. Tia asked what was happening to Alexis's eyes, to which he suggested that it was because of the use of the holy sword. The heroes continued their journey, which passed through the dead forest. Gonzo suggested that Alexis take a little rest while he stood guard. It was already night. The guys made a stop. The man sat down next to his friend and said that Ed and Tia were already asleep. Alexis turned to Gonzo. He said that even though they hadn't known each other for so long, the young man was grateful to him. Gonzo asked why he suddenly decided to tell him this, and whether Leon was worried that he wouldn't be able to say these words later. Alexis didn't know. He just wanted to, because the boys were going with him to certain death. Although they had the right to leave and live the life they wanted, they decided to stay with him. Gonzo asked if the guy thought they couldn't handle it. Alexis pointed out that no one knew what the future held. The man agreed with him, but he added that they needed determination to fight, and Ty and Ed didn't need anything at all. Gonzo asked Alexis not to worry, because he would protect them with his muscles. The hero wanted to ask for farewell in case such a moment never came, but he didn't have time. Alexis sensed danger. He ordered Gonzo to act. He understood everything without further ado. The man activated the spirit shield and covered Tia and Eden with it. He shouted for them to get up quickly and wake up. There was little time for their showdown. The bottom was attacked by small monsters that had small but sharp teeth. A flock of such monsters surrounded the heroes. Alexis ordered Ed to cover him while the hero would deal with the enemies. The youth used the sword technique, Full Moon. An incredibly large explosion illuminated the forest. The vibration and power from it spread further. Ed started running away from the source of the explosion. He understood why Alexis decided to deal with the monsters himself. Meanwhile, the compass showed who exactly attacked them. He ran to Tia and asked if she was ready. The girl replied that she could handle it. Ed pointed to the tallest tree, where their enemy was. The elf pulled the string of her magic bow and sent a storm beam straight at the target. The Demon Land is a vast, dense forest that divides the domain of humans and monsters. Ed from the past carried Tia on his back, using his renegade step skill, since it would be a deadly walk if he walked normally. Even a hero would have a hard time getting out of these territories. The elf's arrow hit its target accurately. After a day of hiking, the team decided to rest a little. Tia noticed that they only had canned food left. The girl missed home cooking. Ed promised that he would definitely cook something tasty upon his return. Gonzo admitted that good food was enough to motivate him. However, cooking in these parts was very dangerous. Tia quietly said that they would wait until the city. Ed glanced at Alexis and asked how he was feeling. He assumed that the hero was tired after such a difficult holy sword technique. The young man replied that he was fine. The technology was complicated and he didn't really know how to use it, but Alexis learned quickly because he was a hero. Ed agreed with that. Tia thought it would be years before they could enter the Demon Lands. However, they came here only half a year after meeting the new squire. The girl hoped that they would continue together in this group. Gonzo supported her. Ed remembered that one of the conditions for returning to the White World was to stay in this one for more than half a year. He could only wait until he was banished from here. The master said that a day spent together was more important than 10 years apart, and turned the room to sensations. Tia began to understand what the man was talking about. Ed looked at the hero. Now that Alexis had the real holy sword, he was a real hero without a doubt, and became a strong being in this world. In addition, Tia and Gonzo were with him, and they were very strong, and since they traveled with the hero, they were obviously already famous throughout the world. Ed understood that even though they were fighting together, his goal was different from theirs. He couldn't change anything. Even if the boy wanted to stay, he wasn't allowed to. However, the squire didn't think it was such a bad idea, but Ed's suffering was in vain for the moment. His soul was pining to return home, to his world. His thoughts were interrupted by Gonzo's loud voice. He and Tia raised their mugs and wished for them to defeat the Demon Lord. Ed asked what the boys would do after they won. No one expected to hear such a question. It felt like no one had even thought about it. The squire clarified his question. He asked what they wanted to do after their adventure. Ed mentally decided that he needed to come up with a reason to get kicked off the team. Tia said that Alexis would become king after winning, remembering his comrade's specific taste. Ed mockingly asked if he would make wings for the royal castle. Alexis didn't particularly like the joke. He asked Gonzo if he wasn't going to return to the eastern lands for a while after the battle. The master told him not to worry, because he could wait. Alexis replied that he wasn't worried. The man laughed and said that it was all on his face. Now it was Tia's turn. She was asked what she wanted to do. The girl replied that she would like to go on a round-the-world trip to see this huge world. She would like to learn and see many things. Tia suggested that she would build a house and tell about their exploits. The girl asked if it wasn't a beautiful dream. Alexis laughed and noted that it was her style. Tia asked what Ed would like to do. He replied that he would return home with souvenirs. His native village was small, quiet, and peaceful. Having heard about it, the elf wanted to go there too. Seeing that the guy was clearly avoiding inviting the girl to his village, Tia said that if he wanted, they could go with him. He just had to tell her, otherwise she would not forgive him if he suddenly disappeared from this world. Gonzo supported the girl. He added that even if they quarreled over something in the future, they would still remain comrades who fought shoulder to shoulder. The man took Tia's hand and declared that their bond was forever unbreakable. Alexis didn't know what Gonzo was planning, so he asked how long they would pretend to be drunk on plain water. The hero thought it was too early for them to talk about the future. Ed interrupted him, telling him to defeat the demon lord at any cost. He asked what was wrong with a happy future if they had the power to create it. Alexis replied that there was nothing wrong with him, and besides, he had no intention of breaking his promise. Ed, with a sly smile, reminded him that the hero had wanted to say something different a couple of minutes ago. Ed extended his fist towards Alexis and earnestly asked him to promise to defeat the demon lord, no matter the cost. The hero understood and made his promise. He slammed his fist into Ed's. It was the first time the squire had parted ways with them on such a note. However, he was going to see this through. At night, when everyone was asleep, Ed sat outside. He didn't want to have any regrets. From now on, the young man would try his best for the sake of believing in their bright future. In the middle of the night, Gonzo suddenly woke up. He got up and left the tent. There he saw Ed, who was awake. The man said that it was time for the guard to change, and the boy needed to rest too. The squire asked how Tia and Alexis were doing. Gonzo didn't understand why he was asking, and replied that they were fast asleep. Afterwards, Ed asked the martial artist if he could ask him for a favor. The young man did not want to regret anything, so he was going to dispel all fears in his life. While the squire and Gonzo were talking, Alexis did not sleep. Ed knew that this was his last mission as an exile, to defeat the demon lord. After resting, the boys continued their journey. When they were near Tia, who finally seized the land of demons, Alexis took out the holy sword. With the attack of the full moon, he cleared the path from the trees and dry branches. Bright rays illuminated everything around. When it dissipated, the team saw an army of demons. They were of different sizes. Finally, Ed saw those who would make the hero squad happy in the future. One of the monsters came out from the armament of the crowd. He licked his lips and could not wait any longer. The monster greeted the hero and his friends. The demon addresses the group, calling them a great hero and his friends. He declares that the demon lord's army is already waiting for them. The demon states that only a hero or a madman could come here, accompanied by a smirk. He addresses the hero directly and asks how he plans to get through them in such a tired state. The protagonist of the hero's group addresses the demon. He asks if the demon thinks that it is too warm to welcome them with so many guests, or if the demon is worried about something. The warrior continues to be sarcastic. He mockingly suggests that those who want to get the hero's autograph should stand in line. The hero will gladly carve an autograph for him with his sacred sword. The demon reports that strange reports have reached them about a certain black-haired squire laborer who is even stronger than the hero. He also claims that the real leader of the group is not the hero, but the black-haired adventurer. The hovering little demonic eye confirms twice that it is indeed him. The squire says with annoyance that he forgot about him. When the man asks, he replies that this monster is actually some kind of warning system. When provoked by the warrior, the demon declares that he has understood the essence of the humans. He concludes that their weakness should not be trusted and that they must be killed here and immediately. The demon warlord threateningly declares to the hero's group that they will not go any further. He explains that this is the reason why he has gathered his entire army here. The hero realizes that they simply need to defeat him to pass. He calls the warlord stupid for not even bothering to protect the lord, and asks if he is even sure he can defeat them without a plan, to which the commander-in-chief replies with murderous intent that he will kill them. In this way, he inspires his army. Immediately after this, he gives the order to all fighters to attack. A battle cry is heard, and thousands of creatures attack the hero's group. The hero suggests that the warrior finish them off quickly, to which he immediately receives a response of approval. A girl from the hero's group addresses Alexis by name. She asks Alexis not to overdo it. She also reminds Alexis that he still has to fight the demon lord. When the army came close, the tall man declared that they would take on the small opponents, resolutely confirming that this is exactly how it would be. To confirm his words, he lets out a long battle cry, expressing rage. At the same time, the girl realized that there was no time to waste. So she stuck the sword into the ground and began a spell directed at the moon, which gathers the earth and gives it shape. As soon as she finished speaking, spikes appeared from the ground and pierced the moving demons. The demon commander announces that their goal is to wear down the hero. He orders them to continue their advance, not sparing their lives for the sake of the Lord. The demon states his despair that they will never be able to stop or wear down their opponents. He admits that the opponents are too strong, and the elven magic is also stronger than they thought. The demon desperately asks why their defenses are so strong and when they became so strong. He notes that the elf also casts spells without rest, and wonders how she never runs out of mana. Realizing that there is no time to hesitate, the commander-in-chief gives the order to move Jormungand forward. At that very second, the layer of earth where the group was standing collapses. It was a trap that caught both the group and the demons who had not managed to escape. The main character, falling, announces that he needs to get up somehow. A voice is heard from below. As he got closer, the adventurer realized with horror that there is a huge snake behind them. The elf wastes no time. She acts instantly, summoning a huge hand from the ground. A cry is heard. She, calling on them not to worry, adds that there is just a little bit left, encouraging the whole team. Fortunately, the huge hand manages to catch onto the edge of the cliff. But it didn't help. The snake flew out of the ground at high speed, catching the hand right in the air. The giant snake Jormungand swallowed the hand. She laughed, sarcastically noting that it was a good try, but they still wouldn't succeed. At the same time, someone's voice noted that he didn't think he would fly, especially with his body. A member of the hero's group addressed the creature, stating that although it was large, it was still weak. The hero's group stood on top of the snake. They watched the creature hovering high in the air. They discussed whether to help it down, expressing surprise and some irritation that this creature could also fly. The two characters come to an understanding about their intentions towards the flying creature. They decide to put their thoughts into action, noting with irony what a coincidence this is. One of the characters let out a battle cry, preparing for action. Another shouted instructions at him, correcting the adventurer to go left and a little higher, to which he received an immediate answer that the snake was difficult to control. Realizing that he was about to fall, he ordered Tia to cover him with wind magic, to which she agreed. Finally stopping, the main character asked if this method really worked. Tia replied that she was glad they were safe, emphasizing that they had been on the verge of death. The group realized that they still had a long way to go. The warrior offered the elf a mana potion to replenish his reserves, for which he was immediately thanked. He then threw a recovery potion to Gonzo, saying that he could use a potion too. He himself responded with a laugh that he felt whole and full of strength. The hero, turning to Ed, realized that the result was not quite right, but they had achieved their goal. The group of heroes realized that they had reached their goal. They were standing on the real demon lands. However, this place required them to be even more careful than before. One of the characters suggested moving forward, but another insisted on dealing with the pursuers first. The third character, a woman, agreed with this plan. They noted that the path they had chosen would not be easy. The hero began to speak, addressing everyone. He thanked his companions heartily, expressing his joy at having fought shoulder to shoulder with them. His words were filled with sincere gratitude. He continued his speech. The man emphasized that, unlike him, who called himself a hero, each of his comrades has every right to live as he wants. He honestly warned that there are no guarantees of survival. The hero said that he would not blame anyone if they chose to retreat, calling it a good option too. He gave them a choice, to follow him further or to leave, leaving the further decision to each. The adventurer now understood what the hero had wanted to ask him earlier. He noted that such was his determination and pride. The elf asked with surprise and reproach why he was saying such strange things. The elf said that of course she would go along. The tall man exclaimed loudly and decisively that it did not look like he, the hero, was just walking around. He had come here to save the world. The protagonist, observing the decisions of his comrades, realized that they were strong and could easily cope with everything without him. He considered this development of events to be the best and laughed loudly. He quietly apologized to the others and announced that he was leaving. The hero's comrades expressed extreme bewilderment and shock at his sudden statement. The elf suggested that it was a joke and noted that now was not the time for such things. The hero stood his ground, firmly stating that he was not joking. The hero, turning to Tia, began to explain his decision. He apologized to her and emphasized that he was telling the truth. Tia reminded the hero of his promise to be with them until the end, expressing confusion and misunderstanding of his actions. The hero had long thought about what if he stayed with the group and they defeated the supreme demon. The hero continued his thoughts. He wondered if the condition for his expulsion from the hero's group would be fulfilled if he went further with them. The main question tormented him. Would he be able to return to his world in such a situation? The hero realized that this was his personal path, and he should put his life on the line and risk everything for his goal. He declared that he had no other path now and that he wanted to test his fate, and not just wait. He expressed hope that there would be a place for him in the distant and wonderful future. That is why he decided to leave the group on his own. Alexis admitted that this decision must have been very difficult for the hero. He noted that the hero himself made this difficult decision in the current situation. The hero also stated that for him, all these demons are just a cloud of small insects. He claimed that they take only by numbers, hinting at his ability to deal with them. The hero declared that a common man had no chance to deal with them. Tia, addressing Ed, shouted that this was not true, but Alex calmly stated that Ed had already decided everything. Alex confirmed the wisdom of Ed's decision by explaining to the group that Ed was about to go home. Ed officially announced his departure to the band. He thanked Alex, calling him by name. Alex responded by asking everyone to respect Ed's decision. Ed expressed hope that their paths would cross again in the future. The hero, addressing the adventurer, assured him that he would easily defeat the demon lord. He mentioned that thanks to the warrior, he now had a real sacred sword and asked him not to worry. He continued, insistently telling him to leave before the demons caught up with the group. He urged the man on a bit, seeing his hesitation. Tia, clearly indignant and upset, turned to Gonzo asking if he himself was not against such a decision. She admitted that she understood the man's feelings, but was still against the main character leaving. The elf, seeing that Gonzo was not responding, called out to him again, this time more formally, and with despair in her voice, asked if he was even listening to her. Gonzo stood silently, lost in his thoughts. The protagonist formally approached the tall man, asking if he could ask him for one thing, to which he received consent. Gonzo, hearing the formality, immediately changed his tone to a more mischievous one. He asked the adventurer if he was worried. Ed assured him that he was completely calm. The adventurer continued, noting that Alex was the strongest hero the world had ever seen. He added that his companion was not far behind, mentioning that Alex had finally gotten a sword and that Tia had also become much stronger. He also added that the group is so strong that you can't help but feel bad for the demon lord. The man noted with slight irony that with the skills of the main character, they have a much better chance of defeating him. Gonzo admitted that they would not have gotten this far without his interlocutor, and thanked him. Gonzo said he would do anything and there was no need to be shy. The young man laughed, assuring that he was not shy. The tall man summed it up by asking what they wanted to ask him. The protagonist suggested that they would most likely be ambushed by demons after they had passed the lion's share of the demon lands. The bearded warrior understood that the enemy was usually much more numerous than they expected, and they always took numbers. He noted that if it had been a small group of scouts, they would have already defeated them. His interlocutor pointed out the problem. The enemy would send all of its troops, and its army was too large. Despite the enemy's numerical superiority, the man expressed confidence that together they would cope with everything. Gonzo agreed with the argument, but noted that this could not be called bad news, since they would certainly reduce the enemy's ranks. The protagonist continued that they cannot sleep or rest properly, but only fight constantly, and this will continue until they leave the demon lands. He also stressed the need to be alert and full of energy. He acknowledged that if they were to reach the Lord, they would not be in perfect shape, and that it would take strength to defeat him. The adventurer asked a disturbing question, whether they would even have a chance against the Overlord, considering that they would come to him in a deplorable state. Then the warrior suggested making the hero appear before the Lord in all his glory and full of strength. His interlocutor agreed. Gonzo declared with determination that he was the hero's support and shield. The young man thought that if such a critical moment came, then all they would need to win was one thing: to make a rational decision at the right moment. He then turned to the man with a request to support him and support the decision he would make. In his mind, he uttered words of request and supplication, his tone extremely serious and insistent. He handed Gonzo the bag, explaining that it contained everything the group might need. He noted that the bag was quite heavy, but that wasn't the biggest problem for the man. Suddenly, the bearded warrior exclaimed with a guess, asking if the adventurer had already thought of this plan. To this, the young man answered positively. Gonzo briefly confirmed that all was well and announced to the entire group that they were leaving, urging them to follow him. The elf asked with disbelief if Gonzo was definitely not against such a decision, since the Demon Lord's army was behind them. At that moment, the main character began to quickly move in the opposite direction. He ordered Gonzo to remove his hands, yelling at him to stop underestimating him. Gonzo physically restrained him by holding his hand. The man firmly told Alex that the hero should go the other way. The man, addressing the group, asked if moving on was not the smartest thing to do. He stated that they would have to sacrifice something to win. The hero, turning to the bearded man, angrily asked if he thought he would break his promise. He exclaimed that they were difficult. The elf indignantly asked why Gonzo had used protective magic. The adventurer reminded himself that it was this man who had saved Tia in the first place. He also admitted to the hero that he had guessed something. He turned to the hero, asking if Gonzo hadn't told him anything. The warrior firmly stated that he would deal with the Demon Lord's army himself. He explained that this would leave the group with only the Demon Lord to deal with, making their task easier. He accused the hero of being interested in him from the very first meeting and considering him as a competitor. He noted with bitterness and asked directly whether it meant that the hero had lied to him. The bearded man called on the hero to let the boy go if he was a real hero. The character loudly demanded an answer from the hero Alexis. He stated that he always believed that Alexis would defeat the Demon Lord and urged him to go and do it. Hero Alexis bitterly repeated the words about the need to defeat the Overlord, realizing that he must do so, and added that he did not want to waste his friends in vain. Alexis wondered agonizingly if he could even call himself a hero if his stubborn nature prevented him from making the right choice. He reminded himself of his promise to defeat the Demon Lord. The inner voice insisted that Alexis didn't care how he did it or what he had to overcome. It emphasized that a hero had to cope with his destiny. Suddenly, the adventurer asked if he could be expelled from the hero's party for this. The elf strongly protested. She asked him to stop. The hero finally made his final decision. Turning to the warrior, he continued. Alexis, with a heavy heart, began to speak words of expulsion to the young man. Finally, Alexis finally agreed to expel the adventurer from the hero's group. The young man added that he would still accept a warrior, but as a comrade in arms. Ed thanked Alexis, calling him a hero. Suddenly, a system window appeared, notifying that the activation condition had been met. Turning to Gonzo, he added that everything else would be on him. Meanwhile, the system window again notified the protagonist that there were 10 minutes left before he was banished from the world. In his thoughts, the adventurer confessed to Tia that he decided to go through everything a second time just to see her smile again. Tia desperately screamed that he couldn't handle it alone, begging him to let her go to him. Ed sadly noted that he had brought her to tears again. Suddenly, the elf felt herself once again sacrificing for those important to her, questioning the nature of these feelings and memories, and noting that she was the only one to survive. These were memories unknown to her from another life. These were memories unknown to her from another life. Tia screamed, asking Gonzo to stop, to which he replied that Ed was determined and would not do this for him. The elf claimed that she and Gonzo were the same. The bearded man also explained that Ed had asked him to, and he would be decisive. He stated that the young man had trusted him with the two of them, and he could not let him down. At this point, the elf felt as if she had seen this before. Before this, in a conversation between the protagonist and Gonzo, the latter doubted whether Alexis would do such a thing when he found out, and asked if he wanted Alexis to do it himself. Gonzo stated that the hero will still remain a loyal comrade to him in any case, adding that he doesn't care about all these words. Meanwhile, the young man, addressing the demons, apologized for keeping them waiting. He said that in gratitude, the hero promised to destroy their lord, and he simply helped the hero move forward. The demon commander mocked Gonzo, pointing out that he had an entire army with him while he was alone. He declared that his efforts were futile and that he would stomp on his head in the blink of an eye. The protagonist calmly called on the demons to prepare. He expressed doubt that they would be enough for him alone. With a final battle cry that inspired him, he challenged all opponents. Tia remembered the first time she met Ed. She noticed that he sometimes had a strange expression on his face, like when he was making weapons. It seemed to her like he was watching them like children through the window of his house. The elf added that sometimes it was as if he was trying to pretend that he wasn't with them, as if he was distancing himself. She sadly admitted that she wished she could have consoled him earlier, since now he had left them. At that moment, the demon lord appears in front of them. He lands, creating a shockwave. He noticed that the little people were quite funny. The hero, overcome with anger and grief, shouted that they would kill him. The demon lord scornfully stated that Alexis had only sacrificed a small fry, and that the hero had proven to be more of a coward than he thought. Wanting to say something further, he fell silent, hearing something. These were lines from one spell. A sharp magical spell was heard, accompanied by a powerful release of energy or a blow. The voice spoke firmly and decisively to Alexis. Defeat the demon lord and move forward. The voice emphasized the need for victory, to see joy in the future, not just here and now. At this time, the main character was decisively moving in the direction of the advancing army. Panic broke out in the enemy camp. The commanders shouted that the defense had been broken through and called for reinforcements. One of them asked in horror what his men were doing. Another stated with amazement that he had not expected the general to die instantly. The demons were talking to each other in shock, not understanding what was happening. They knew the attacker only as a squire and could not understand why he was so strong. The young man explained the nature of his power in his mind. He felt his blood turning into a thick mist, oozing out of his body. It was a temporary strength-boosting skill. It would end in 10 minutes, leading to certain death. The adventurer magically manipulated gravity. The enraged demon commander shouted that he was tired of the squire and it was time to finish with him. The protagonist sarcastically noted the power of enemy spells, which do not spare even their allies. The demons, having caught him in a trap, shouted maliciously that now he cannot dodge. There was a deafening explosion of supernova power, engulfing the battlefield in blinding light and destruction. The demons rejoiced, confident that no one could escape such an explosion, and Ed was dead. However, one of them expressed doubt, noting that everything went too smoothly and suspiciously and he did not believe in his death. One of the demon leaders ordered Gigantos to go after the hero, and the rest of the troops to regroup and follow them, setting the task of not letting the hero's group get to the Lord. The demon was against it. He wanted to be the Lord himself. Another demon abruptly cut off Gigantos, accusing him of excessive impudence that crossed all boundaries. The young man, suddenly appearing unharmed or alive, angrily blocked the demon's path, declaring that they would not pass to the heroes. With despair and rage, he shouted how many times he had to repeat this. He continued the fierce fight. The demon screamed at the squire in impotent rage, not understanding why he was still not dying, and demanded his immediate death. The adventurer realized that he would have to use even stronger magic. The protagonist used the ability to absorb magic directed at him. He self-critically noted that he needed to try harder and assess the blow as weak. The warrior used his skill and delivered a blow called the Bloody Sword. As he continued to fight, he calmly thought that he would soon leave this world and he didn't care what he was doing now. Having exposed himself to the blow, a sharp battle cry was heard. accompanied by words about ruthlessness and remaining strength. While striking, the protagonist firmly stated that he had chosen this path himself. The squire loudly proclaimed that he himself chooses his own path and his own future. The demons, in a panic, admitted that they had underestimated him, comparing his power with the heroes, and desperately ordered anyone to kill him at last. Ed thought bitterly that in the end he would always be alone. He turned to his skill, the blood sword, accepting that this was his fate. He called it his tragedy, but accepted it as his future. He confidently declared that he would leave no regrets, at least in this world. Standing under the bloody rain, the protagonist thought. Finally, the system window appeared and notified the protagonist that there was 1 minute left until the end of the return. The squire thought gloomily that in the end they would only be a field of bloody carnage, foreseeing the outcome of his battle. The demon screamed in panic that he did not understand how a man could be so strong. In horror, he asked what he was, and in despair, he noticed his incredible regeneration. Ed calmly stated that it was time to end this bacchanalia of battle. One of the demons desperately screamed that the main character could not be so tenacious, not believing in his fortitude. Another demon desperately called for him to be killed. The protagonist continued the slaughter. The demons fell one after another. The squire stood his ground, cutting everything in sight into pieces. Ed, addressing the last remaining demon general, asked him how he would prefer to face death. He acknowledged his strength, equal to the best in the hero's squad, and noted that his arrogance and loneliness would ultimately be his undoing. The demon firmly told the young man that he would not allow him to join the remaining forces. He vowed to bury him here, even if it cost him his life. This general used his most powerful spell, gravity destruction, hoping to take the hero with him. The boy mentally rejected the demon's praise for himself. Instead, he thought fondly of his comrades, of old Gonzo's incredible strength and protection, of his tireless heart, of how they were the strongest force in the world. The black-haired squire added to himself that they were different from a weakling exile like him. That is why the warrior explained his determination. He is now ready to put everything on the line. The adventurer confidently declared that he knew for sure that they would win, even if he died. The dying demon general croaked that such power had a price, and Ed would fall here too. He laughed bitterly, admitting defeat, but claiming that he had achieved his goal, and added gleefully that Gonzo would never see his comrades again. The demon, dying, shouted his last mocking words, wishing the protagonist to die alone and calling him the biggest loser. Having heard the demon's last words, the protagonist delivered the final blow. Returning his weapon to the spatial storage, he looked down at his feet. Ed was breathing heavily. It was hard for him even after using regeneration. However, he managed to destroy the entire army of demons in 10 minutes, thus fulfilling his purpose. The adventurer noted with a bitter smile that he had not even broken a sweat. He assured himself that there should be no more enemies in the way of his comrades. Through the pain, he encouraged himself that he needed to hold on a little longer. He wondered with detached curiosity what they would do after it was finally all over. The squire warmly imagined the future of Tia, who would no longer have to hide in the forest, and the bright future awaiting Alexis and the old man. He stated that the world of ruins was no more. The protagonist looked into the distance, perhaps at the sunset or the void. His thoughts were unclear, but there was a sense of quiet completion to his path in this world. Suddenly he saw the old place. He wondered about the inevitability of what was happening, wondering if it was fate. With a slight grin, he admitted that although little had changed, he would not mistake this scene for anything else. The young man realized that this was his final destination. Mentally addressing Tia, he quietly asked if he had kept his promise. Realizing that the best reward was the absence of answers to all his questions, the protagonist continued. He agreed with the internal argument that it was better to leave everything as it was. He thought that Tia and the others would probably try to find him. But his sentence was cut off. A sudden system window appeared, notifying the hero that there were 10 seconds left until his return. Ed noted to himself that the lack of any traces would be suspicious. With a sense of accomplishment, the adventurer thought that he had done everything he wanted in this world. He felt that he had reached his limit. The protagonist's last thought was trust in old Gonzo. He wished Alexis luck, and also said goodbye to Tia, entrusting her to take care of everyone. The system window again notified about the process of moving between worlds. As soon as this happened, his silhouette disappeared. The hero found himself back safe and sound in a familiar place. He breathed a sigh of relief and noted with slight irony that this place was still boring, the white world. Ed remembers that there's something more important. He feels himself trying to find differences. The young man thought about how he could have died because of the exile's skill. He was relieved to find that everything was, as before, as usual, and he was happy about that, despite the possible worst-case scenarios. His attention was drawn to a familiar door, which also had not changed. He confidently assumed that his comrades, given their strength, would easily deal with the Demon Lord. Ed thought with regret that he could not eat the bun now. He would have to wait until he returned to his world. The hero admitted to himself that each time he returned to this place, he was always pleased, expressing mild disappointment that he hadn't received anything yet, which he assumed would only happen after the second round of trials. Ed wondered about the possible reward. Would he receive a new skill or an improved version of an old one? When he touched it, he felt nothing. Suddenly, an object fell on him. The hero exclaimed indignantly, having learned the source of the fall, and ordered the bad man to stop it. The young man, losing patience, angrily asked why he kept throwing things right on his head. He saw a book called The Hero's Notes. The Book of Results. He, with surprise and question, he thought, is this his reward? The book, surprisingly, was not white. This puzzled the hero. Looking through the book, the hero skeptically noted that it was in bad taste and identified it as a diary of observations of Alexis from the point of view of some deity. After leafing through it more closely, he realized that it looked more like a collection. He discovered that the book covered every aspect of Alexis's life, down to the smallest and most ridiculous details like information about diapers, and that the narrative began on the day he was born. The hero continued reading, finding details in the book that Alexis himself might not have known. He noted with surprise and slight mockery that Alexis was a nice child, read about his surroundings, concluding that the hero's life was described meticulously. He also noticed how his hand, turning the pages, slowed slightly when the narrative reached the point where Tia joined the group. Reading about a familiar world from a completely different point of view seemed interesting to the hero. He almost forgot about himself until he discovered his name in the text, with surprise and a strange feeling. Immersing himself in reading with an exclamation of recognition, the hero realized that in the story of his comrades he was still perceived as a mere reflector of the heroes. He recognized their strength and suddenly became clearly aware of the fact of his current existence here and now. Reading the lines, being outside the pages of the book. When he reached the end of the book, he saw the outcome of the events with him. He was sought and even recognized, because the hero called him the true hero. This brought a smile to Ed's face. Relaxed, the young man sat calmly, saying that he was very glad that he had not believed in Alexis in vain, who was able to defeat the Demon Lord. Suddenly, something started to crawl out of the floor. It was a bookshelf, which was empty. Apparently, all the books received had to be put in the shelf. The hero reflected on the hero's notes, noting that it was not surprising that the narrative had been interrupted after the victory. He regretfully thought that he would like to know what had become of the others. The man reassured himself that there was no need to worry about old man Gonzo. He had probably returned to his homeland. His thoughts turned elsewhere. He wondered if Tia was looking for him, admitting that it was scary but not surprising. He hoped she was traveling the world as she wanted to. The hero acknowledged that his comrades had kept their promises. Now it was his turn. He was determined to ensure a happy ending for the remaining 99 worlds, and knew in his mind that he had to act. Suddenly, he remembered the dying demon general's last words, that he would be left alone. The hero bitterly wondered why he was thinking about sadness and solitude. He reminded himself that he had understood this from the beginning. He quietly confirmed to himself that this was the path he had chosen. The hero realized his place. He would leave nothing behind and would belong to no one. Becoming only a scoundrel, he declared his readiness to sacrifice everything in order to find his happiness, the way home. Turning back, he saw a very familiar silhouette. It was Tia, with tears in her eyes and a feeling of deep relief and completion. Wondering if she had really found him, the children were playing the hero's group, and one boy insisted on playing the hero, confidently declaring that defeating the Demon Lord was as easy as pie. The girl asked the boy why he always chose the role of the hero. The boy offered her the role of Tia, and another boy the role of Gonzo, and also Ed, and called everyone forward. The boy who was offered the role of Ed hesitantly asked if he would play Ed again. Another child was surprised by his reluctance, reminding him that Alex had called Ed his best friend, which had caused confusion. The elf who came up said that Ed was actually really cool. Having said that, she continued moving towards the castle. The action moved to the castle. The official respectfully asked the king if he would like to make a statement in person, so as not to waste any more time. The king agreed to convey everything to the townspeople as soon as possible. The master of ceremonies announced the invitation of the next and last guest for the day. The elven guest respectfully wished the king well-being and thanked him for the honor of an audience. The king interrupted the formal pleasantries, declaring that the king's time was more valuable than they thought, and demanded to get to the point. King Alexis had long recognized the guest who had entered, Tia. He greeted her with a smile and without further ado, noting that they had not seen each other for a long time. It was obvious that he had been waiting to meet her for a long time. The elf exclaimed joyfully when she saw Alexis after years. The elf jumped on her old friend and hugged him too tightly. The king asked her to let him go, as it was difficult to breathe. She emphasized that he really became king. The girl said that she had arrived by sea, which took half the time of land. Alexis understood and added with slight sadness that Gonzo could not come this time either. A man standing nearby noted that her rebellious spirit had not faded. Tia greeted Mr. Reginald warmly as he appeared and also asked if Alexis had time to chat. Reginald was glad to see the girl. When Alexis asked about the time, he explained that, having learned of Lady Tia's visit, he dared to change the schedule for today, which caused her gratitude as an elf, and Alexis's surprise. Alexis offered her a drink, noting that it was a cold night outside. The lady accepted the cup gratefully. Tia praised his diligence, comparing the illuminated cities of his kingdom to a river full of stars. Alexis reflected on the journey they had made, acknowledging that they were still at the very beginning of a long journey. The king firmly stated that he saw his mission as lighting up every house, no matter how far away. Otherwise, the promise would not be fulfilled. The elf remembered the day they had finally defeated the demon lord. She described how they had run as fast as they could, to the place where they had parted ways with the one who had sacrificed himself. Tia bitterly reminded Alex that all they had found at the site of Gonzo's last battle were the remains of countless monsters and his sword. Despite years of fruitless searching, she never lost hope, insisting that he might still be alive somewhere, and explained that she simply wanted to return his body to his homeland. The hero added that 10 years had passed since then. Alex gently countered, certain that Ed himself would want her to move on. He asked if it was time for her to accept reality, and asked her opinion on that. Tia, ignoring his advice, asked if Alex remembered why she had gone to the eastern continent. The king replied that it was to learn a technique that would allow her to sense souls. With a slight smile and pride, the girl declared that she had mastered this technique. Alexis looked at her with surprise and shock. She admitted that she had caused Gonzo a lot of trouble in life, causing Alex to exclaim in surprise. But then she explained that thanks to his efforts, she had found a clue, a trace of the protagonist's soul. Alex, puzzled, asked how to get to him, reminding them that they had scoured the world far and wide without result. The elf replied that she did not yet know how exactly to get to him. He demanded to know what she meant. Tia pointed her finger beyond the sky, explaining that he was too far away, perhaps somewhere beyond the seas or even beyond the borders of their world, in another dimension or reality. So the young girl continued. She thought of one little trick, a magical way to achieve it. Alexis asked if there was a spell that would allow one to reach a target no matter where it was, regardless of distance or plane of existence. Alex immediately realized that she meant teleportation magic. The elf added that such a spell would require an incredible amount of mana, making it almost impossible. The king added that even if we were talking specifically about Tia, who had much more mana than an ordinary person. Tia agreed that he was right. As an elf, her mana reserves were enormous, but even that, she admitted, would not be enough for such a massive leap. Alex, delving into her plan, assumed that she would then need to gather mana from the entire country or even the entire world. He began to think about how this could be accomplished. He warned that moving to an unknown location is extremely risky and requires careful preparation. The young elf warmly thanked Alex for his understanding. She emphasized that this was her most sincere and cherished wish, and not that of the entire country or the entire world. She expressed concern that Ed would be angry with her if she caused anyone else trouble with her search, so she insisted that she wanted to do it herself. Take all the risks. With her same determination and belief in herself, Tia reminded Alex that she was a member of the strongest group of heroes who had saved the world. She confidently stated that she would be fine. She firmly asked Alex to simply rely on her in this matter. After that, the king returned to his private office and sat down at the table. The servant respectfully reminded His Majesty King Alex that it was time to prepare for bed, breaking the silence in the private study. Alex briefly agreed to rest, but only after he had finished his current business. The servant respectfully offered him dinner with Lady Tia, stating that he could prepare everything necessary right away. King Alex declined the offer. He figured there was no need for that now, since she had finally found something that could lead her to Ed. Alex admitted to himself that he didn't want to get in the young girl's way. Alex confirmed his willingness to do everything he could to help. When asked by his interlocutor about Lady Tia's whereabouts, he replied that she was, of course, in the archives, where he had given her access, and suggested that she was immersed in research. Reginald turned to the king, saying that he understood their feelings, but he noted with concern that he felt they were taking on too much. He also added gently that he simply did not want their health to deteriorate due to the unbearable burden, expressing his sincere concern. Alex laughed and reassured his interlocutor, saying that there was no need to worry, since they would finally catch their escaped comrade by the tail. He added with firm determination that he was not going to let Ed go just like that, and that he would not be able to escape from him. The elf, immersed in studying the documents in the National Archives, noted with admiration that there was so much fresh research here, calling it amazing, as expected from such a repository. The employee politely apologized for any inconvenience and thanked the girl, handing over the research collected at her request. He offered to help if she needed anything else, to which she replied that everything's fine. Len asked Tia to do her best to show her support and promised to help her as long as it was useful, to which he received great gratitude from the elf. Tia was optimistic that with so many resources, her research should move forward quickly. Several papers caught her eye, giving her a general idea of the knowledge. The research quickly took off. She thought with gratitude that it was a blessing to have such friends. Declaring with determination, she firmly swore to herself that she would do it and find Ed. Then she buried herself in her work, muttering under her breath about various suggestions. While checking the information, the young girl thought about it. She mentally decided that it didn't matter how long it would take, even if she had to devote the rest of her life to it. The young elf also thought about the silver sword that the main character had left behind. It was still kept in the royal treasury. She found out where the second wing of the sword of Ed was. Tia felt that she was almost there, but she was missing just one step, which was too far from her. Turning to her squire in her mind, the girl admitted with annoyance that this information was not enough. She sighed in disappointment, thinking that she would finally see him. She bitterly asked the protagonist why he needed to go so far, expressing bewilderment and fatigue from the long search. Suddenly, her gaze caught on one book. Her eyes lit up, realizing that this book could be the key to the riddle. She carefully took the book into her hands. This was a book by the researcher Ruha. It included the practical implications of using external mana to cast large-scale spells. The man said that the girl was in high spirits today and suggested that something good had happened to her. The knight asked her to wait. She said she had found something amazing, and with it she would get to the guy wherever he was. Tia felt embarrassed and thought she had been a little hasty. She apologized for the intrusion and closed the door. People started saying that she was energetic and very cheerful as always. They thought that she had made some kind of discovery. The king said they would take a short break. He walked out into the corridor and addressed the girl. The man said that she was even more energetic today and asked what was wrong. She said that she did not want to ruin the meeting and asked if he was free. The girl also apologized to him. Tia asked him to look at the document. She said it was a fantastic article. She wondered what kind of person the author was. Alexis said the author was really talented. The heroine said she wanted to borrow the article for a while. She asked why he needed armor. The man replied that the place he needed to examine could be quite dangerous. He said that it wasn't like any trouble could cause him any trouble, so she could take the article. Alexis added that the original was in safe storage. He asked her about the new discovery. The main character began to talk about the use of the theory and method that she had abandoned. She said the rest was a secret for now, and she would tell if everything went smoothly. The man said he was looking forward to the results. Tia said to trust her because she will conduct a successful experiment. The girl thanked him and said that it was time to give it her all. She said she was starting and wished him luck with his royal affairs. Alexis said she was always cheerful. The man was apologized to and asked to take his time. The girl said she wanted to ask something. The truth is, she found a non-obvious way. This is just a theory, of course, but if she really applies it, she can go beyond the world and find the guy wherever he is. However, she needs to be placed in an area rich in atmospheric mana. There is only one place that fits this description. It is the Demon Lands. Alexis and Gonzo are already in their places. They are doing what they are supposed to do, so she can't bother them anymore. That's what she wants, so she'll do it herself. She has tried many methods over the past 10 years, and even now she doesn't know if her plan will work or if it was all in vain, but she refuses to give up. Ed will still remain in her heart. The man said that he had not seen the man for a long time. The king thanked him for coming. He asked him not to thank him because his duty was to protect the land. He also took some fighting monks with him. The king thanked him and said that if he could clear the miasma there, it would be the first step to creating a teleportation gate. Gonzo said he can't believe he'll live to see technology like this. Alexis said it was all thanks to the girl, and she was the one who made the discovery by reviewing one study. The man said she was supposed to be back 3 months ago. Alexis confirmed this, but added that Tia had left again, saying that some thread led to the guy. Gonzo said he only gave her a few parting words. The king said he wished she would rely on them a little more. It was true that they had a burden of responsibility and could not move as freely as she could, but even so, they shared the desire to meet Ed again. He said that she shouldn't put the responsibility on herself alone. The man said that she enjoyed it. Gonzo said the king was wrong. The girl was in the same boat with them, and she was just in her place, just like them. So she can devote herself to finding a boyfriend without a care in the world. A helping hand is not the only way to help her. Alexis said that even though he had become a king, it seemed he still had a lot to learn. The man laughed and said that was life. He began asking where the girl was. The king said that when she arrived, she took the research and ran away. Gonzo said she was in a hurry. The king said he had thought of it too, but that was her. She couldn't sit still with an idea in her mind. The man said the girl hadn't changed at all, but Alexis had to know something. A girl came up to them and asked if they were talking about her. They told her that she had come just in time, and they had just started talking about her work. Gonzo said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time, and that she looked great. Rouge replied that she welcomed everyone except Gonzo. The king asked if she knew how the girl had obtained her research. He added that they were just wondering what her goal was. Rouge said they didn't even know that, so she would gladly tell them on the condition that her research budget be doubled. The king said he wouldn't agree to that. The girl said that if he was talking about a favor, he should be more modest. The man replied that her job was to report on research results, and if she wanted to double the budget, she had to go through the proper procedures. Gonzo asked him to calm down. He asked the girl about the study. He said he would take her wishes into account, so she should tell him. Rouge asked if they had read her study. Gonzo said that he had never seen her before. The girl said that she would explain everything from the beginning. The main theme of the work is the use of external mana. In simple words, there is a way to use the mana around them as if it belonged to them. All you need is a magic circle. So almost anyone can do it if they know how to activate magic circles. That's why it's possible to create a teleportation gate. She asked if they realized the full probability of the discovery, since it requires a lot of stable mana. Rouge said it was a breakthrough that would advance magical technology by 100 years. The man said it sounded fantastic. The king said he had been briefed on the contents, but to hear it again was truly incredible. Gonzo asked if the strength of external mana changed depending on the location of the mage. The girl confirmed this and said that a place rich in mana would obviously be much better for casting a spell. She asked to think about it and said that she excluded it because it was too saturated with mana. But if they were talking about the greatest efficiency, then there is a place where monsters live forever. The king apologized and said that they were postponing the cleanup. The girl replied that he would achieve nothing by giving up halfway. He replied that he had urgent business to attend to. Alexis said he was going to find Tia. The man said he thought the king had a sudden reason for such a change of plans. The king replied that if the girl was right, the heroine had already gathered everything she needed, and if they waited another 3 months, they would have no idea where she would go to find Ed. Gonzo assumed she was in a hurry. He said that since the demon lord had been defeated, his influence was slowly fading. Alexis said he was sure she would be fine in the demon lands, and that's why if they don't hurry, she'll disappear without a trace. The girl started to stop them. Rue said she was against it. She didn't believe they were going all the way to the demon lands. The king said that he understood what she wanted to say. If necessary, he would bow his head to her. But at the moment, he was going to do it no matter what. The girl asked him to explain himself and not beat around the bush. Reginald appeared. Rouge said he had come just in time and told him to make the stupid king explain himself. The man didn't understand what was going on. Everything was explained to him, and he understood the current situation and began to ask leading questions. The girl said that this time their plan would affect an outrageous number of people. She said that it would bring a lot of trouble. And not just for the kingdom, but for the entire eastern continent. Besides, it would take 6 full days to get to the demon lands. She couldn't believe they were seriously going to make her wait that long. The man turned to the king and said that the girl was right. However, he added that he had a reason to go there without a shadow of a doubt. Alexis replied that this time he wanted to do it no matter what and see his friend. He said that his friend was going on a journey. The girl said it was a completely selfish reason. Gonzo said he was only asking for a well-deserved reward. The man said that saving the world because of his duty as a hero, Alexis had every right to do so. He asked for his reward now. This is the wish of a true hero who will hear everyone's prayers. Gonzo said that he would of course go with the king, since he too had not yet received his reward. The girl said that the two of them would do whatever came into their heads. The man wished them fair winds. Rouge started to get angry with him. Reginald said that the men could leave the girl with him. He said that he would wait for him upon his return, and with good news. The king said that they would leave immediately. Rouge said that's why she can't stand men. No matter their age, they act like children. The man said she was right and laughed, but he thought it was normal. He said that heroes who always fought for the good of others pursue their selfish desire for the sake of a friend. And the fact that he believes in the correctness of the decision makes him truly happy. The king began to list the names of his indispensable comrades. He thought he understood that their paths could diverge, no matter how warm that fire was. If it's time for the embers to burn out, they will go separately. So at least for the last time, he wants to see her. So he has no regrets. Gonzo asked Alexia to look ahead. The man said that the giant trees were different from the surrounding vegetation, and he clearly had a hand in this. The king said it was the girl's work. The man noticed smoke ahead. She was surprised that he came to her and asked him to wait a minute. The girl ordered the bird that she did not need to worry. She asked her friends to go inside. The girl asked them to make themselves at home and said that the place was small. It was quite cozy. She said that she had built the place with magic and asked how they had gotten to her so quickly since they had only just received her letter. The man asked what letter they were talking about. The girl said that if they had not received a letter, then she did not understand why they had come to her. Gonzo was there to help set up the teleportation gate. She said that would make everything work as it should, and the theory was correct. Tia was sure that everything would go well, and she was already convinced of everything. Those trees that they saw from above were her work, and it took effort, but the result was worth it. It's a special kind of tree that accumulates the surrounding mana. This house is built from them. That's why it all worked. Gonzo suggested that these trees were the connectors of a large network. The girl confirmed this and said that they use the mana accumulated in them and connect their roots. She can obtain one huge magic grain. Almost all the mana will be gathered together, allowing her to reach the place where Ed is. The girl said that the preparations were already completed, so she sent the letter because she wanted to say goodbye properly. Gonzo said her efforts had paid off. He asked when she would be leaving. The girl suggested tomorrow. The man said she was in too much of a hurry. She replied that they had already met. Tia said that the two of them had their own responsibilities. So she said it was time for her to go. The king said he was no match for her. The man asked if they could chat all night long. The girl said they hadn't done that for a long time. Alexa said he was late, but she said everything was fine and she was full of energy. Seeing them sending her on her way with a smile on their face, she asked if the guy was happy or angry, and either way she just wanted to see him. Alexis asked if she would take care of him. The girl answered positively. There was a place where they found the boy's sword. She replied that it was the place where his last trace was found. The girl thinks that this place is closest to where he is now, so she is going to activate the magic circle there. The man turned to her and said he wanted to give her something. He replied that it was just a parting gift. It was a pendant that the investigation team had found while searching for the holy sword. It wasn't much, but it had healing powers. She wasn't sure she could take it since it was too valuable. The king replied that he and Gonzo had it, and she would need it since she was traveling one. The man said that it was made by one of their craftsmen. It was top-notch, but not as good as what Ed made for them. Tia thanked them. She said that she was definitely ready now. The girl asked her friends for their opinion. She was told that she looked perfect. Tia thanked her bird and asked it to take care of herself upon returning to the castle. The girl thanked her comrades. She thought that they were her best friends and comrades, who always supported her. Tia said she was leaving. Saying goodbye is not the end, but an important step to move forward. Alexis asked me to say hello to Ed. A flood of memories washed over the girl, and she thought they were alien. Her soul seemed to be screaming that this was not a dream. These were her memories. The girl said to turn her wish into reality. Take away her past, future, and everything she has. She didn't understand why she was moving away. The amount of mana was not enough. The girl asked the guy to extend his hand to her. Tia said that this time it was her turn to extend her hand. He changed the past, and she will give him the future. The girl said that she finally found him. The guy said that even for a joke it was too cruel because she couldn't have been there. She hugged him and was glad that she had finally found him. Ed thought that he would never confuse that voice in warmth. He asked if she had calmed down. She said that she was fine and apologized for crying. The hero laughed and said that everything was fine. If she liked his chest so much, then it was all at her disposal. He started talking about gratitude. Tia said that she knew about everything he had done for them, how he had fulfilled the wish she had made that day by changing the past and the future. And now it was clear why she had wanted to see him so much. She thanked him, but said that because of her, his future had changed. He stopped her and asked how she knew about it and how she ended up there. Ed asked her what she was thinking. She'd been looking for him for 10 years. Moreover, she decided to teleport to him with a low chance of success. She could disappear with the slightest mistake. The hero did not understand why she did this. The girl replied that it was because someone had disappeared without a trace, without telling me a word. But this time she had caught him and would not let him escape again. Ed felt a slight tremor in her hands, and he knew she was still the same. Tia left everything behind to find him. That's how determined she is. In this case, there was only one thing he had to tell her. He thanked her and said that he was very glad to see her again. The girl began to hug him tightly. She said that before she arrived, some memories had found a place in her mind. It was a sad memory that she had survived, deprived of. They were left alone, surrounded by an army of demons after they had driven him out. Well, now everything was different. Their comrades lived and the world was at peace, and all thanks to him. The hero told her not to be stupid, since it was the result of a common effort that led to this. Ed said he only helped a little for his own benefit. The heroine asked about the place they were in, as it was an unusual world. The guy said it was a long story. The girl asked him what he was thinking about. She was surprised that he was banished from 100 worlds, and upon achieving success, he simply gave up everything to start from the very beginning. Tia asked him why he needed all this. She apologized and thanked him. The girl said that she would go with him on a journey through the worlds. He asked if she would be allowed to do this. The hero asked if she was sure she didn't want to go back, since her comrades might be worried about her. She asked him not to worry, since everything was thought out. She had already said goodbye to everyone, although she had initially planned to go back, but changed her mind when she saw him. She knows that if she leaves him she will regret it for the rest of her life. The girl said that she was doing it for her own benefit, just like him. She didn't want to leave him and wanted to travel with him. Of course, if he really doesn't want to see her around, she'll think about it. She asked if she could be part of the wish. He said that she was extremely demanding today. Tia replied that she was a very greedy woman. Ed said he understood it, but there were a few circumstances that could cause difficulties. The ability to travel between worlds is not his, so he doesn't know if he can take it with him. She said that she had always been interested in the glowing ball. He still glowed. The heroes thought that this ball was unstable. The girl guessed that the crystal ball gave him powers. The guy confirmed her guess and said that he could get new powers if he touched it while it was shining. He did not understand what it was reacting to. The hero asked the girl to touch him. Tia didn't understand what was happening. Ed started asking how she was feeling. She said she was fine but was surprised. The girl said that an inscription appeared in her head and a feeling as if she had some powers. The hero began to ask about her abilities. She replied that if she holds a person's hand, she can go to another world with him. Tia said it was amazing, just like his. She said she felt warm and comfortable in her body. It meant she could travel with him. The guy didn't understand what was happening and thought it was coincidence, although he quickly dismissed the idea. This was the rule from the beginning. In other words, he did not outsmart the system. He simply acted as it intended. Everything that happened was God's plan. So, if he had not changed the past, he had been walking the same path all this time. But he did not understand why God would force him to walk in circles. The true goal is to save each of the worlds. If so, then there must surely be other ways. The girl asked him why he had become quiet. She thought that she had done something wrong after all. The powers should belong to him. The hero thought that he knew nothing about the prayers of God. This was the best future he could hope for. He said that whoever gained the power, the outcome was not changed. The hero said that they were going together and he was counting on her. The girl said it would be a lot of fun, and she couldn't believe she could travel to different worlds. The guy said it wouldn't be that easy. Tia said that as long as they are together, they can handle anything. He said that time passed differently there, so they could take a rest, and asked if she was ready to go right now. The girl replied that she was fine, in fact, full of strength, and so charged that she was ready to go. The guy said that he would take her hand and not let go. She said she wouldn't let go of his hand, even if she asked. The guy thought about the fact that in this cold and white world there was someone else who was so warm, he couldn't let go of it. Even as a reward for saving the world, this is too generous. The girl wanted to ask him another question. She asked him where exactly they were going, and the guy replied that she would find out soon. The hero said that they had arrived. It was another world. The world was different from theirs and not like the previous one. They were asked why they were there. The creature asks them what they are doing in such a place, since they are without fur, since this territory belonged to the furry ones. The guy asked her to stand quietly, as he could handle it himself. The hero greeted the creature. The girl pounced on him and said that he was very cute and fluffy, and the animal began to ask to let him go. The guy asked the girl to let him go and not to be so rude to the first person she met. Ed said that this is a very important creature. The hero said they were very sorry. The girl apologized to him and said that he was very nice. The guy said that all was not lost and asked to leave it to him, and said that first he needed to apologize. He said they had never met their kind and asked to forgive them, and they really were very sorry. The girl also apologized and said he was cute and had very beautiful fur. She said she couldn't help herself and hugged him. The little animal said that nothing could be done because he really did have a good laugh. The creature couldn't believe that he had such good fur and said that it was good that he had a kind heart and that's why he forgave them. The heroes thanked him. He said Ed recently called him a hero and asked if he knew about him. The guy said that despite his small stature, he was a great fighter. It was clear to him at first glance that he was a candidate for heroism. He assumed it was Waffle, and he was right. The hero said that they were adventurers who came from the human kingdom to test their skills and introduce themselves. He said he wasn't actually on the hero selection committee, but he didn't think he'd be able to meet the real candidate. The guy said the more he looked at him, the more he realized he was a real hero. He said it was like fate that they met him there. Ed asked him to let them accompany him on his journey. The creature said that it was quite difficult for the hairless to get there, and since they got there together, it was fate. Waffle said they could stay with him for a while. The guy thanked him and said they were very happy about the opportunity. The little animal said that even though he had no hair, he understood everything. He said that in that case, there would definitely be no problems. Waffle asked them to follow him, and the girl did not understand what had just happened. The hero replied that it was the culture of their people. He extended his hand palm up to show that he was the younger, and he placed his on top, as the elder. The girl said that this is a unique culture, and they are definitely in another world. The hero said that all beastmen are unique inhabitants of that world. The girl said that she was completely confused. They were bipedal animals, or a mixture of man and beast, that is, a hybrid. The guy said that this word was strictly forbidden to be pronounced, because people use the term beastman more often. But for them, it is an offensive term, since it meant that it was a beast that could never become a man. Waffle asked if they had a hunting permit, but the hero replied that they did not. He said that then they would have to pay for admission. Before the heroes was a city of beast people. The inhabitants of the city began to discuss them. The guy said that the girl was too excited and asked her to try to calm down, otherwise she would get lost, and asked her not to point her finger at strangers, as it was rude. The creature said that they had arrived, and said that they would stay there for the night. He said that he would stay somewhere else, go hunting tomorrow, and asked what they would do. The hero replied that since they were with him, this was an excellent opportunity to look at his exploits. The little animal said that in that case they would meet tomorrow at the hunting lodge. The boy thanked him. The girl said he was too cute. Ed said that even though he was cute, he was still a hero. She wondered if it would be cute if Alexis had a tail and ears. The man asked if they were going to spend the night or not. The guy said that they needed to get clothes from the world they were currently in. The girl started asking him why he had parted with the beast. She said the hotel didn't seem that bad. The guy replied that it wasn't that he recommended them a cheap hotel because of their financial situation. He just allowed them to accompany him, but they were not his equals. That was why tomorrow was important. Beastmen valued strength. They had to prove themselves to be accepted as comrades. It wasn't the waffle itself, but the problem that that world was facing. The girl realized that the relationship between people and faiths was bad. The hero said that the country they were in was sandwiched between the human countries in the east and the territory controlled by the demon lord in the west. He asked her to guess what problems might arise from such a location. The girl said that direct attacks from the demon lord's army might occur. The boy confirmed her words and said that the country was desperately fighting every day to prevent the invasion of the demon lord's army. And human countries do not move towards direct attacks from monsters as long as the country exists. Since they do not suffer directly, human countries greatly underestimate the threat from the demon lord's army. They seem to provide some material assistance, but for the beastmen who shed blood, these are very unfavorable conditions. In addition, although it seems to be only a part of people, there are those who look down on the beastmen, considering them a convenient shield that protects them for small money. Tia said that it was outrageous. The boy replied that no matter how much the beastmen disliked humans, they could not ignore the demon lord's army, or their country would be completely destroyed. So the beastmen continue to fight, even if it ends up protecting human countries, which they don't like. Human countries become calmer beastmen, receives even more wounds, but people do not understand their pain under the pretext of frivolous battles with the army, the Lord of Demons, a country of inhuman beings begging for handouts, and a country of cowardly people buying warriors for a pittance in their lives. Such a difference in views worsens relations between both countries. And as can be seen from what the beastmen said, those who constantly fight also discriminate against weak people who do nothing but hide, calling them hairless. It's so ingrained in the culture that they say it without much malice. That's how cold the relationship between the countries has become. If the demon lord is defeated, the next war will begin between humans and beastmen. The girl asked if they could do anything about it. The guy replied that it was difficult because the problems were at the level of the state and the peoples. They were strangers and could not do anything. She replied that the hero saved their world, and he succeeded. This means he can help this time too. The guy replied that the world was saved thanks to her and the others' efforts, and he only helped a little. He said that the world is saved by the hands of those who live in it. So this time, they will help a little together. The girl agreed and said that she was ready for everything. The guy replied that this was a good answer. Tia asked what they should do next. Ed said that the world was currently in a stalemate thanks to the efforts of the beastmen. To change this situation, the beastmen made one decision, namely, the Hero Qualifying Tournament, which will take place in 2 months. This is an event that determines the strongest hero. It will gather the best fighters from all over the world who will compete for the title of hero. Waffle is also one of the participants. That's why he was a candidate for hero. The girl assumed that it meant they had to support him to become a hero. The guy denied it. He said that even if they did nothing, he would win the qualifying tournament and become a hero. Tia said that's probably why they're with him, but it means they won't be doing anything for a while. The hero replied that if the goal was only expulsion, then it would be possible, but then a big problem would arise. Well, since they have the opportunity to change everything, he really wants to change the ending that happened last time. The guy said that he had accumulated several unpleasant events, and Waffle stopped smiling forever. The heroes greeted their comrade. He thanked them for coming and asked how they slept. He suggested that they all go together to one place. It was a hunt for Kuronuri. The animal said that it was just the right opponent. The girl began to ask about who Kuronuri were. Waffle replied that they were enemies of the world created by the Demon Lord, and they attacked everything indiscriminately. They are a bit like regular animals, only completely black. Only their movements are fundamentally different from animals. They are very fast and sharp. If you don't get used to them, you can quickly die. They fight him all the time. He said they were unlikely to fight them, so it would be better to just watch. Waffle told them to watch him fight and then join in. The hero agreed with him. He said that then, as they had agreed yesterday, they would simply look closely at his heroic deeds. The little animal asked if they understood that they would have to defend themselves. Ed told him not to worry and that they would cope. He said that he was very confident in his abilities. The two of them didn't have hunter cards, so they couldn't form an official group, and since they were just watching, they wouldn't be sharing the reward. If they wanted to make money, they could collect medicinal herbs along the way. Waffle asked about their outfits and thought they were weird. He assumed they bought them and called them beautiful. The hero said that they thought that if it came down to it, it would be better to match the beastmen. Waffle noted that the heroes had been to this country before, and that they did stand out less. The guy replied that he had been in the country for a very long time. The girl said that if they just watched, they would not have the opportunity to show their skills. She suggested that they would show their abilities when the beast was in trouble, much and why he allowed her to go with them. Tia suggested that it was to please and gain her trust. The hero replied that he did so the first time. Well, he's doing it for someone else now. Waffle asked them to be quiet since the monsters were there. He asked them to hide. The hero said that he was not praising him, but was telling the truth, and it was not flattery. He was really strong. Tia said he looked like Gonzo. Their new friend killed the monster with his bare hands. The guy said that the observation was over and he needed to show himself. He used the earth hand skill. The hero said it was impressive. Waffle said it was amazing. The guy said the girl didn't read the spell and she didn't use the sword he gave her. She said that after his disappearance, there was a lot of training. He praised her. The girl said to praise her more and said that in fact it was thanks to the special bracers. Craftsmen from the Eastern Kingdom created them by studying the weapons left to them. They conduct magic. Forgive the reading of spells. It was limited though, but it was still impressive. Waffle said they were both strong. He apologized to them for underestimating them. The girl asked him not to take it. It's in his head, because she also underestimated him when she hugged him. She asked to get acquainted again. Waffle said that it was better to be friends with such strong warriors. The hero asked about them. The girl easily dealt with the monsters. Her comrades were surprised by her abilities. She easily absorbed the monster's power into the hunting card. The hero said that if they were left, they would disappear. In about 10 minutes, the monsters would simply disappear. He said that you then simply show the card to the administrator of any hunting lodge and receive a reward in accordance with the absorbed power. The girl said it was convenient and asked if they could make hunter cards too. Waffle said they usually couldn't, but if he recommended it, they could probably do it. The girl was happy to have received a hunter's card. The little animal thought she looked happy. The boy laughed and thanked him for it. The beastman guessed that they both wanted to go with him to the hero selection tournament. They confirmed it. He said that he had seen their skills. Now that they had certificates, he had suggestions. Waffle asked if they wanted to officially form a band. The hero said that they were very happy. The little animal said that they were so strong that he wanted to become a comrade and distribute the reward correctly. The girl said she was very happy. The beastman approached her and was very negative. She apologized and said she was a little nervous. The beastman started attacking her, and she thought that the relationship between humans and them was so bad. She remembered the words that if the demon lord was defeated, then the next war would begin between humans and beastmen. The hero apologized for his companion. He addressed the creature by name. Dobin said that his name should not be used so familiarly